Hey, everybody. It's Jamie Hart here, and this is Twin Peaks Tuesdays. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the pilot episode, which aired on April 8th, 1990. I remember that day quite clearly. I was sitting on my bed and with my Easter basket because it was Easter Sunday, and I was eating Easter candy while watching this unbelievably strange and wonderful show. Um, and one of the first things I remember about that, even though I watched it last night, and obviously it's not the first part of the show, but for some reason for me, it's the first part I remember is Audrey. Audrey and those saddle shoes. Those saddle shoes left a lasting impression in my mind. So I find that interesting that that's what I remember as first, but it really didn't start out that way. Let's see. I last night when I watched it, I fell in love with the show all over again. I fell in love with Audrey all over again. The part where she's in that one room with the Norwegians, and they all turn and they look at her, and she tells them, my friend was found murdered, and they all run away, and she's delighted by it. I absolutely love that. It's charming. Also, when she puts the little pencil in the cup and it runs all over because she pulls it out, it's charming, and it sets you up for what Audrey's going to be like for the entire rest of the series, which, well, at least for the first two seasons. Season 3 is a little different, but we'll get to that eventually. Agent Cooper gives a weather report when he's telling Diane everything in his first audio recording to her, which I find really funny and interesting considering David Lynch and his weather reports. And it reminded me a lot of David Lynch's weather reports. I thought that was really funny. And I like the fact that, it's Douglas firs, but I don't know if that's going to relate to Dougie in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to look for some sort of tie in there. Oh, we have a guest. Hold on one second. Lauren.
I am very big in this picture.
Oh, yes, I'm going to fix that. Just 1 second.
Believe me, I'm big enough. People don't need me bigger. That's better.
Yes.
Push it on back.
Yes. I didn't have it set that way to begin with because I didn't know if anyone would be joining me or not tonight. So,
Well, I mean, I can talk peaks.
all right. I like a guy who can talk peaks.
I will warn you that I finished my garden today, so I am very, 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 very exhausted. So I don't know how long I'll last, but I'm game to try.
Awesome. I'm tired too today, so we're in it together. Oh, you planted a garden today. That's exciting.
I've never shown you photos of my garden.
No, but I'd love to see.
It is made of telephone poles.
What? That is sweet.
There's telephone poles as posts, and then there is deer wire because I have very carnivorous deer.
Yes.
Will eat anything that I grow in there, except for the sun. The sunflowers do okay. Everything else they eat.
Yeah.
So I needed something that they couldn't, because in past attempts with less militarized protection, they just tore through or over. They can't get over this because it is a good 14 feet high. So.
Well, that's good. The deer around here are pretty. They like to come right up to you. And
oh, yeah.
I'm surprised every single time when I go up back and I wait for them to come up to the apple orchard because they like to come up there, especially, after all the apples come out. And they'll come like 5 feet from me. As long as I sit there quiet, they don't bother. They don't care.
Have you learned the bowing trick?
No, what's that?
If you bow to a deer, it'll bow back to you.
Get out.
I'm really? Dead serious. If you bow your head like this, they will do the same back to you.
Oh my God, I got to try that next time I'm up back.
It's part of their communication between them. So when they see you do it, at first they're a little startled, but they will do it. It's
That's
crazy.
Awesome. Is that your cats?
Excuse me?
I think I hear your cats.
Probably not, but
I hear something.
It's possible.
Oh, we got another guest. Mike.
Mike.
How goes it?
Okay. Yeah.
You doing okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I like your name
What's
tonight, Lauren.
Well, it's more than a request. It's a demand at this point.
Yeah.
I want him stricken. By the way, you remove him, and you remove him and Donna. Nothing changes. Not a single plot point changes.
I was gonna bring that up. I'm so glad that you agree with me because
They're
here's the
useless.
thing. I look at James in the show and I'm like, what is the appeal of this guy? He's kind of the only time I ever like him is when he's actually being really cool, which honestly to get most of the time he's not. Every once in a while he'll make a cool face or do or say a cool thing, but other than that, most of the time I'm like, this guy is
I
not cool.
Well, no, but I see. I think that actually that's intentional because I mean you've heard a little bit of my take on the series, which
Mm,
is that it is a meta commentary on television,
right,
and but at the same time, it's using the meta conversation about television to relate to society in general and where the trajectory of our society in real life, which is why I believe that the end of season three actually ends up in our world. But anyway, getting going back to the first episode, I think James is supposed to be there to give the show a really definitive 1950s aesthetic, even though it takes place in '89.
yes,
So it's telling us like, okay, we're going to start with the innocence of early television, the '50s, because he's a biker that would never exist in the 1980s. It's
right,
stupid. And throughout the series, you see like the influence of drugs coming into the town. That's kind of like all these like modern influences destroying small town America. It's very
right.
much the beginning of Blue Eel, not Blue Eel. That's my novel. Blue Velvet. I'm tired. I told you. Blue Velvet with the the ants under the surface of the well-maintained lawn. It's the same concept. Lynch keeps going through it, but I think that's what James is supposed to be. The problem is he's a great cardboard cutout, but he's an awful character. I mean,
Absolutely.
he does nothing good.
No,
Nothing.
and he's boring and he's awkward. And I know he's supposed to be like, what did I say to Scott last night? He's like supposed to be like the cool, silent type. And I just he doesn't I'd rather he's not that way. I'd rather he's more, I like it better when he talks more. He's actually if he had more dialogue instead of being trying to be too cool for school all the time, I think I'd like him better. But I never liked him and people attack me like crazy about the fact that I don't like James, but I don't like his character and I'm not attracted to him. I want Bobby. I'm a
Well,
Bobby fan.
and that's kind of again, if you go with how I view the series, Bobby starts basically Eddie Haskell, right?
Yes.
He's the bad boy, but he's a bad boy that you're kind of into, right? I don't
Mhm.
mean that the way you mean it, but I mean like he's you know that there's something good underneath. He's just really badly behaved.
Right.
And as the series goes on, what's funny is as the town evolves around him, it surpasses his level of mischief and becomes a far worse place. So by season three, of course, he's a symbol of authority and rationality because the town has surpassed the 1950s version of bad.
Yes, and I have theories about season 3 too, which when I get to season 3, we'll talk about those a lot more, but my theories on season 3 are basically I think Bobby was inevitably going to end up being I kind of consider him the hero of season 3 a little bit cuz he kind of figures everything out. Without Bobby's, role in the situation, they would have never found out a lot of the clues to get them where they got themselves, which I have a lot of problems with season 3 and I will like I said get to those, but as far as like Bobby in relation from the beginning to the end, I think that his story arc went exactly the way that I wanted it to go and exactly the way that I thought it should go. Even it matches up with that dream that his dad had, where he said he went to his house when he was all grown and that he had a good life and everything, which I find that scene extremely touching in the show. And I was glad to see that when they did do the show 25 years later, he remembered that and he took that into account when he was making it, which I really, really liked. Um,
I realize that we kind of like stepped on Mike.
yeah.
He
Mike,
should
are
be
you,
he should at least establish like his relationship with Twin Peaks.
yeah, are you a Twin Peaks fan, Mike?
Yeah, I'm just getting a bit of echo, so I'm trying to work out my audio at the minute. I'm getting a lot of echo, so
Yeah, I'm getting a delay
I
from
did
you.
like yeah, I'm just trying to sort that out. So you carry on talking, I'll try and sort out.
No, I'm listening, so go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay. um, yeah, I really, really enjoy the pilot episode quite a bit. The ending, the differences between the ending of the pilot episode, the American one, and then the international one, I find very interesting. And I also find it really interesting that he ends up using all of that footage in the future series, so that it ties in together, which I really did like. I would prefer to watch the American version. Oh, Mike disappeared. I would prefer to watch the American version of the pilot, just because, it fits in with the series a little more. It doesn't have that ending to it, but those pieces do eventually come to play in the series as the series goes forward, which I really like that a lot.
I will tell you that the one thing I think is a tragedy of early Peaks. And by the way, I owned and I still own somewhere, the international pilot on Laserdisc, which was the only way to buy it for a long time.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but I think the tragedy is we have the Bob Lydecker character introduced as being in a coma at the hospital, and they never go there. They never do anything with it, and it's so established that that's important.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. I really think it would have been cool if, I mean, obviously maybe they thought third season, fourth season, something would have happened. But if in the third season that we got, we addressed that. And I think there's plenty of places you could have addressed it by the end of that series when it goes all wonky. But I love the idea. And I mean, everyone knows that one of my favorite films last year was The Empty Man. It kind of has that concept built into it too. I love the idea of coma being a different mind space, which is a different realm, which is essentially where the Red Room and the apartment above the convenience store really is. It's a different mind space.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of stuff, and that directly plays into the European ending, which is a little bit longer. You get the full poem, which became kind of almost a glib thing in the dream. It's like, what was that? I don't know. But like in the European version, Bob's given a little bit more room to espouse. And I just think it's cool because it feels like a real character there, even though obviously it feels tacked on. But
Yeah, and also Bob, in the international pilot, he feels more like a real person rather than a spirit that possesses other people, because they actually shoot him.
Mhm.
And he's actually dead in the basement, which I was like, wow, I totally forgot about that, because that kind of messes things up in your head a little bit when you think about the series and how the series goes forward. But I understand why they did that for the international pilot anyway, because they did have to have some sort of definitive ending just in case. But it seemed to me like it got picked up by what was it CBS, I think, like really quickly. And even if you look at the dates that things aired, it dated it the date for the next episode is the following week. So if they aired the pilot, and then they must have approved it like immediately, because
Well,
it plays next week.
the problem Twin Peaks had was its budget. If it costs what a regular show costs to make, it would have just been picked up. There would never have been an international pilot because it would have been what it was. But it was extraordinarily expensive for its time. So
Yes.
you needed partners beyond the broadcast, because in ad revenue at that time, you could never have cracked the nut. The show could never have made money. So they looked for every single way in the international market that they could make money. Japan was a big focus, but so was Europe. And the wall, was coming down. There was a lot of emerging markets that were
Mm.
less hungry for American product. So Twin Peaks actually enjoyed more of kind of a global stretch than probably anything else of its time because it had to.
Yeah.
There was no way to justify $1 million an episode unless the average hour-long drama was only bringing in something like 90,000 on its premiere episode. I mean, there's a big gap there, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why so many shows wanted to get to the magic 100 episode mark to go into syndication, because some of these shows that very well lost money until like 8 years after initially premiering.
Yeah.
It was a long investment, but Twin Peaks couldn't have been that way. It was way too big. That's also why we got an abbreviated first season.
Yeah. Yeah, the first season's only 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised when I compared it to season 2, which is 22 episodes, and I was like, wow.
And I'd argue that that was really forward thinking too, because today nothing's long, right?
No.
We went to the British system of like 6 to 12 episodes. 12 is like a long series, and so I think that's really smart. I wish they'd cut the second season into 2 seasons. I think at the death of, I'm sorry, but you're not dealing with, you're just dealing with spoilers, right? You're not worried about it.
No, I'm not worried about spoilers.
Cool. So I think the Death of Leland episode should have ended the second season. The third season should have begun with the disappearance of Garland Briggs. It would have been, everyone would have hated the third season pretty much, except for me and a few other people.
Yeah.
And I'd still see it as weak, but I kind of love it for being weak. But I think that makes more sense, don't you think?
Yes, I do. And here's the thing: when they announced back then that it was going to be canceled, I was pissed. I was so angry because I knew that it was because the mainstream just couldn't hack it. I love David Lynch already. When I first started watching the show, I was already super into David Lynch. So I already expected, longer drawn out scenes, strange, characters with quirky little, habits and strange things about abuse, and especially about the abuse of women. I knew there was going to be lots of crazy extreme soap opera elements put into it, which I loved, but I knew that the mainstream people weren't going to be able to handle it. And as soon as they solved the murder, I was like, this is going to be it. This is sealing the deal for the show, because as soon as everyone finds out who did it, everyone's going to lose interest. And he was right about the goose laying the golden egg, because like he says in that he has a little documentary. He says, Laura, the murder was the goose that was laying the golden eggs. That's true. It without that murder, everything kind of fell apart. Everything was supposed to be based around that murder, and then trying to figure out different mysteries that were going on with other people in the town. But they did that. They pushed it so hard, like how, like the who shot JR thing, who killed Laura Palmer. They pushed that so hard that it literally made everyone insane.
Yeah, but here's the alternative side to that, which is I was a David Lynch fan as well, and we are close in age. So I mean, we're talking about the same period. We're both in high school, senior years. We have the same stuff going on. But here's the thing: like, I avoided Twin Peaks because I was a Lynch fan. I was like, television, Lynch, don't see how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So I avoided it during its first season, and I caught up on reruns during that summer. So here's the thing: the horror elements that open the second season and continue right through the revelation of Bob, and arguably through the end of the second season, kept me, because I said, okay, different than the movies. I'm loving this, but it's a different thing. I get it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: from a practical storytelling standpoint, you couldn't have kept it going at the pace it was going. I mean, the problem is these high school seniors were going to be 35 in real life by the time they graduated.
Yeah.
So something had to change. And the other thing is, if you don't do the Bob as the possessing spirit plot line, if you don't do the evil in these woods thing as a real thing, not just a speech in the back of the roadhouse, I don't know if fans like me would have stuck with it as long as we did. I ended up loving it, but you got to remember who we were at the time, right?
Hmm.
I mean, Dark
Well,
Shadows was being programmed on NBC against it.
yes, I
Now,
remember that.
I'm sorry. Do you think I wasn't being pulled in two directions? Because I guarantee I was. So I'm very glad they did resolve the Laura Palmer murder. And the only sad thing I have is that they clearly didn't figure out fast enough what was going to be a compelling next drama, because there's 2 episodes post Death of Leland that are just, I'm sorry, they're bad. They're outright bad episodes.
Indeed, I agree. And I have a hard time watching, a lot of the episodes after Leland, is revealed to be the killer. I have a hard time watching those episodes, but at the same time, there's certain ones and certain aspects of them that I do find quirky and funny. And I mean, I like the Dick Tremaine stuff. I think he's funny. The stuff with Lucy and the baby, not knowing who the baby's dad is. That I kind of like that little plot line. Um, I liked the extra stuff with uh, Harold. No,
Mhm.
that's all first season though, right?
That's also,
Harold.
yeah. Harold doesn't. Well, no, Harold makes it until the episode before the revelation of Bob,
Ah, that's right.
because
That's
he
right.
hangs himself in the orchid
Yes.
hothouse.
Yes.
So he's there. But I like that character. Lenny Van Dolen is actually a really underrated actor, but no one knows what the hell to do with him.
I love that guy. I really
Well,
do.
yeah. I mean, he's great. I mean, he's obviously a red herring, but even the first time they introduced him, I'm like, oh, this guy's so innocent it hurts, because we're supposed to think he's messed up.
Yeah. Well, I think they put a lot of red herrings in there, which I actually kind of like, because I didn't like always feeling like, I guess I knew from almost the first couple episodes, I just had a feeling it was going to be her dad. I just had a feeling. It seemed like logical to me. I wasn't really all that surprised when it did get down to the brass tacks and they showed him in the mirror looking, and it was Bob looking back at him, because with all the weird ways that he was acting in the first season, with like the weird dancing and the singing and his weird mood swings and jumping on the coffin and that whole thing. I just it was it
Can we
was
talk
too.
about jumping on the coffin for a second?
Yes, I
So
like that.
handling a funeral as slapstick is completely in the Lynch wheelhouse, and I'm down with it. But that's not the amazing thing. The amazing thing is that Leland descends into the grave, and we cut to commercial. When we come back from the commercial, and it's easy to not completely get it, Shelley is making a joke about it. She's
Yes.
literally going, no,
Yes.
no, no. Now, I would argue that Shelley is supposed to be, at that point, a fairly pure character who's just kind of fallen into this really messed up life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a moment of real darkness. I mean, you're joking about your coworker, right? Because you ran Meals on Wheels, um, who's dead in a coffin, and her father is descending into her grave in grief. That's dark.
It
That's darker than
is.
the scene before it.
It is, but if you think about Shelley a little bit, she lives such a dark life, with Leo, that maybe that's her way of coping, is making jokes about things. If you want to get deep down into characters like that,
Well,
that's what
well,
I think.
Shelley, I think, was a character that they missed a lot of opportunities on the second half of the show with,
Yes.
because, in my opinion, and I love Leo, okay, love him, and I mean that. I mean, I love bad Leo, I love good Leo, I love comatose Leo, I love all
I
Leo.
love comatose Leo going new shoes.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I think that all should probably have gone. I think that on at the probably what I would call the season 2 finale, which is that Death of Leland episode, Shelley should have killed him, because her character was working into a dark corner. I mean, I think that would have been awesome, and then having kind of this Dana Ashbrook having to cover up the crime with her, setting up. I mean, I think because as much as it's like the new shoes and the birthday party scenes are fun, there was nothing for Leo to do. I mean, that was kind of. I think that's where I would like the character to go. I loved when they brought it in season 3 that she's more messed up than ever. Love it.
Way more messed up than ever.
Love it. Love that she's surfing on her daughter's car. Love it.
Yes. I love that she's surfing on her daughter's car. I love the fact that she's wearing high-heeled shoes, red high-heeled shoes to work. Who wears red high-heeled shoes to work when you're a waitress? You know, I love the fact that she seems totally normal until Red comes around. And as soon as Red comes around, she's like, ooh, schoolgirl, you know?
Which is what her character's always been. It's like, but it's like, it's now so like pathetic because again, you look at Bobby and he's got his shit together finally.
Yes.
And but the series was leading us in the opposite direction, whereas we thought like Shelley will be okay, but Bobby's going to end up, you know, he's going to be a grease stain on the side of the road any day now.
Yeah.
But and that's another thing. I know you're not really wanting to talk too much about season 3, but there's something really dark about Norma too, that no one talks because, you know, Norma is such a bad friend. It's not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, she works with this woman for what, 30 years?
Yes.
From the time she's a teenager dropped out of high school. She
could have done better.
She should have been She should have been owning the place, and Shelley should have been managing it at that point. For one thing,
right.
But second of all, you see him get her screwing up her life again. You don't step in because she doesn't.
Right. She just watches it from afar.
Yeah. I mean, as she's doing bills on a table, which is I think is brilliant, but I think it's also like I almost feel like season 3 is an indictment of the first 2 seasons as being a bit too hopeful. You know, Lynch has gotten to the point where he says, well, television is this barren wasteland of misery. So that's what it's going to be because that's where we are. But a lot of those characters that we have really fond memories of like are pretty awful people when you really get down to it.
Yeah, see, I don't necessarily have fond memories of the characters. I mean, I do to a certain point, to a certain extent, but I've also, because I really like the dark side of things. I like to understand the dark side of things. I like to, you know, go into a character and see exactly why they might be as dark as they are. With Shelley, I think it's because she quit school to marry Leo. So her whole I think her whole character arc has to do with her wanting to move on from whatever bad home life she's had, and she thought Leo was her way out of this bad home life. And Leo was the kind of guy who, you know, well, you got to be home, and you got to be, everything has to be clean, everything has to be so and so. He was very controlling over her. I think she took to that and she accepted it because of the fact that she was so young. She was only 17, I think is what it says in the script or something. So she was super young when she quit school and married Leo. So I think that has a lot to do with her dark side. And I think also it stunned her the abuse she endured, whether she endured it at her home or whether she was enduring it from Leo. I think that it stunted her growth. And that's why when we see her in season 3, she's sort of stuck in this, you know, I still like bad boys kind of thing. And she kind of pushed Bobby aside, even though who in their right mind is going to push a dreamboat like Bobby aside? Hello? I would never do that.
Listen, Dana Ashbrook in Girlfriend from Hell, okay, can't even land Leanne Curtis. So
yeah, true.
I love that movie. Like, unbelievably, I love that movie. That's another thing I own on Laserdisc because it has not gotten a proper DVD release.
Oh, you have that on Laserdisc? Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I still have about a third of my Laserdisc collection. I did get rid of a lot of stuff as it came out on better formats, and a lot of people think I'm insane for that, but I am so functional. It's like, if I own a book, I'll buy a way too expensive limited signed edition of a book, and then I'll read it like multiple times. And people are like, why don't you just buy a cheap version? I'm like, no, I'm not going to own something just so it can sit there and look pretty.
Yeah.
I use things. So
it's taken every bit of my strength in me not to open up that frame back there and get that that script out. I want to read it so bad, but Cameron was like, "Don't you take that thing out of there. Don't you do it. Don't you get any fingerprints on that." And I was like, "All right."
You can find the script online. You can actually, but I know I listen. You're a better person than I. It'd be open.
I it's
Listen,
taking
listen. I have
everything.
the earpiece communicator that Rowan and Janessa used from Jason X. Believe me, the first thing when I received it, I did is put it in my ear. So I mean,
Oh my god. Oh man, I would love to have that too.
so I mean, what you can't, well, you're not going to do that. I mean,
Well, I
like I
know.
know people wouldn't, but that's not my world.
Well, that's like if I had a book, like I have all my Twin Peaks books over here. If I took my Twin Peaks books with me and had them signed, I'd still read them. I can't help myself, especially with books. I will definitely, even if I get them signed, I'll still read them. I'll still touch them. Bye, Candy. I'll still read them. I'll still touch them. It's this thing. But I've been really, if that was not sealed in that frame, I would have that thing out of there already. And it even tells me on the back of the frame that, there is a guide in there to like all the signatures that's on it. Cause sometimes I have a hard time reading the signatures. I figured most of them out now, but I'm still confused about one. But if I open it up, I can get the guide and find out exactly what's what. But I just don't want to. So that's why it's hung on the wall, because that'll keep me from wanting to open that up. But that is the pilot episode. So it kind of intrigues me knowing that
Yeah.
I watched it last night.
I think there's only 3 drafts of it, so I mean, it should be easy for you to track down which one it is and be able to read that one.
Yeah, that one says revised. What was the date? It says 88 on it. I can't remember the exact date, but it says it's 1988. So I thought that was kind of cool.
It is. It is. It's funny. There used to be a big market for screenplays, like both set used and reproductions. I remember going to shows and like there'd be guys with just boxes and boxes full, and they're bagged, and you just rifle through and you'd pick up screenplays. And I did it a decent amount. That's how I got the Exorcist screenplay to read what William Peter Blatty actually wrote, and such an appreciation for him as a writer in that form too, because he understood film so much. I mean, he it wasn't just the story. It was like, okay, this is why this scene connects to that scene. Make sure to get the framing the exact same. Like, amazing. There's no question why he became a director when he chose to, because
Right.
he got it. So I love screenplays. Can't write them, but I love them.
Yeah, I couldn't write a screenplay. I could maybe possibly write a short story. Maybe.
I've tried to
Anyway,
convince myself I've been able to do that for 15 years, and I'm not convinced at this point. So
oh, well, you have books out there. I'm planning on
it's
picking
true.
them up eventually, so I'm gonna find out if you're a good writer or not. I think you
And
probably
and then
are.
you won't make eye contact ever again.
No, I will. Um, yeah, so I watched the episode last night, and I was really, like I said about James. I just I just I don't like him. I don't think
No.
Laura really liked him either, to be honest. I think that Laura was using him. I think Laura used him to make herself feel better. I think maybe she probably had more feelings for Bobby. Um, it's hard to say though. I mean, the way it seems like she's in love with James, because she goes up and she runs and she hugs him and she screams out, I love you, James, and all that stuff. But I actually think she was lying to herself. I think she kind of thought maybe James could save her from being a turkey in the corn, gobble, gobble. But I don't know. I did notice, when I was watching it, they were talking about her diary, and they talk about, oh, I'm nervous to meet Jay. Well, I always thought that meant James. But what she's really saying is she's nervous about meeting Jacques, because she goes to meet Jacques and Leo in the
Mhm.
woods. So she really meant Jacques with that J in that book. And she said it as J because she knew people might think James, I think. And that was not the hidden diary. That was the outward diary that she had as the decoy. So I just find it interesting that, all this time I've thought it was James that she was referring to, and I really now think it was Jock that she was referring to. Rest in peace. He just passed away. That was sad.
Yes. So there will be no more Renaults for him to play.
Yeah,
Um,
that's too bad.
I think I think it's our fault as fans that we want the series to have been planned meticulously, and I don't think it was.
No.
I think the story evolved as the screenplays were coming in. I mean, I think that's reality, and I think that if you were to ask the people, 3 different directors of 3 different episodes, who's the J? They'd probably come up with 3 answers, and have a justification that in that moment as they talked, you'd believe them.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot in the show that is like that, and that's okay because it is a random access myth. It's a show that you should be able to pick up from any perspective and it still work. Which is why I have more of an issue with the second half of season 2, and I have an issue with season 3 as we got it, even though I really love it. Season 3 should have been 9 episodes, maybe, and we would all be a lot happier.
I think if it were 9 episodes, it would have been better. We got 18. I was okay with that.
Long.
It was way too long. He did like that drawn out sweeping scene. That's when I lost Scott, because he was like, what the hell is this all about? 5 minutes of sweeping is ridiculous. And I was like, shit, David Lynch, god damn it. Because I was trying to keep him hooked in, because he was hooked in by season 1 and season 2, and he's seen the movie a bunch of times because every time it was on TV, I would turn it on. If I saw it in, as I was flipping channels, Firewalk with Me, I'm definitely turning to that every single time without hesitation. So he'd seen the movie a bunch of times, and I wanted him to like season 3. I really did. I wanted him to be as big a fan as I was. I mean, I figured he probably wouldn't be, but I always had that hope. But as soon as I saw that scene, I was like, god damn it. And I knew that everybody else too, all the normies out there, I got to call them the normies because I don't think I'm normal. So I got to call them the normies. All the normies out there were like, this is too much for me. And they dropped it and probably went on to some other show, which really upsets me because I would like to see more Twin Peaks. I'd like to see more David Lynch projects.
Well, I don't know you'll see more David Lynch Peaks, but you will see more Peaks.
Yeah, I'm hoping we will. Well, obviously we're going to see Cameron. I was wearing the Queen of Hearts shirts the other day, and he's been showing everybody my awful pictures. I hate them, but that's,
I didn't even mean that. It's too, we live in an age where any property that has value gets exploited.
Yeah.
So it may be a case that as soon as Lynch firmly tells the rights holders that, because he doesn't own it, that he's done, they'll do something with it immediately. Maybe relaunch it, reboot it, which would cause all of us to go into conniptions, but or just continue it in some form. I just don't think anything is going to stop that has a profit potential ever again. And I think that's a bad thing, by the way, but I would like to see more Peaks. I would like to see more Lynch Peaks. Although I wouldn't be opposed to someone else taking it over if they had a strong, very, very iconoclastic vision of it. If they just want to do a smug recreation of the first season, I'm completely uninterested in that.
Me either. I don't want them to recreate it. I want them to continue it. Yeah. I want to know what's going on in Twin Peaks now. I want to know what's going on today.
I don't think if we get more Twin Peaks, we will or we should go back to the town of Twin Peaks, though. I think that story's over. I think the world of Twin Peaks exists, but the town is irrelevant now.
You think that's why he expanded it in season 3 to different places? Because he's trying to show that everything that was affecting Twin Peaks affects everywhere else too?
Well, I think, and he would never admit this, as we know, but I think that not everything, but I think Lynch believes everything every story that came out of his head kind of takes place in the same world. Now, obviously, that's tough. Like, did the Elephant Man exist in the same world as Dune? No. I guess in some ways it does, but obviously on a straight plot read, it doesn't. But Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, sure.
Yeah.
Wild at Heart in Twin Peaks? Maybe. I
Yeah,
mean, there's not a lot of reason to say no, right?
right.
Certainly, Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive could easily take place in the world of Twin Peaks, right? And I think that he just wanted to make he wanted to use it as a launching pad to do stories from around that Lynchverse,
Right.
without having to be chained to the town and those legacy characters. Not that he doesn't love those characters, but I mean, let's be honest. Bringing in Doc Hayward for a Zoom call, I would prefer not to have even been there.
Yeah.
It was too painful and too awkward, and didn't service the story in any meaningful way. It was just kind of, he's still here, so we got to get him in, right? The only one who was discluded was Michael Anderson, and I get it, but
Michael Ancott,
no, well, no, Michael J. Anderson.
Michael J. Anderson. Oh, what was I thinking? Yeah, he was acting a little weird. He was acting a little crazy, and I think that's probably the reason why he wasn't in it. He changed him into a tree with a piece of bubble gum for a head. I find that
and electrical powers. Yeah.
Yeah, and electrical powers. It does go along with the next time you see me, I won't be me thing. So I mean, he made it work.
So he is one of the trees from Glastonbury Grove that just got pulled into the other side. That's what happened there.
Is that what you?
In my mind, that's completely what happened there, and I think it makes good sense.
It does. That is a good theory.
Yeah, I have nothing to back it up. It's just where my head goes, but
you don't need to. I mean, with David Lynch, everybody has their own theories on things, but I actually like hearing everybody's theories because then it helps me with mine. What do you think about this Wisteria unrecorded night thing that's going on with Lynch right now? Do you think it's possible that it does have some sort of connection to Twin Peaks, considering that there's a lot of, hints and tweets going out that by certain characters or people that were in Twin Peaks that are seem to be hinting that they might be involved somehow?
So one of two things is the case here, I think. One of them is just that it's a different project, and Lynch and his, actors who've pretty much, besides Laura Dern, were put on the map by him. Because really, I don't mean this as a pejorative, but does Kyle MacLachlan have a career without David Lynch? Does that happen? I'm not sure it does. He's been in things, but they all came after Blue Velvet.
True.
And I think the stable of actors owe a lot to him. So are they going to scream that no, this isn't Twin Peaks without winking or keeping the mystery alive? No, of course they're not going to. So on one side, I think it's just something completely different. On the other hand, what I really think it is, if it is a Twin Peaks project, I think it is going to be Diane looking for the real Coop.
I would love that. That would be awesome. That's a great idea.
Well, there's all kinds of hints in the last episode that's where it's going. So, because we know that there's now, we see two Dianes on purpose. The sex magic seems to eliminate one of them. Then, Cooper drives off to go find fake Laura. Well, real Laura, really. Because I believe in that final episode, we are supposed to be in our world. That's why the Cooper house is occupied by the real occupants of the Cooper house.
Right.
Not the Cooper, the Palmer house. You know what I was saying.
House, yes.
It's why we spend so much time driving. This gets missed. Like on television, normally characters get in a car. We have one shot of a gear shift going, and then they're wherever they need to be. But Lynch intentionally made us take the ride in silence. And it was saying, no, this is the time it takes. It obviously takes much more, but it took so much time. You realize, oh shit, this is like a realistic take. I mean, the scene in the diner is kind of like, feels like real violence for the first time in Twin Peaks history. Mm-hmm. There's no fantasy aspect to it. It feels like a gritty cop show, right?
You talking about the scene where the little kid shoots the gun outside?
No, I'm talking about the scene where in the final episode where he French fries the gun.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. That's right.
That's I mean, because earlier in the series we get kind of these Tarantino-ish action scenes that are like, elevated. That scene just plays out like something that would be on any like premium cable cop show.
Yeah, and I found that whole entire thing completely strange too, because Cooper himself would not have done something like
No.
that, but Mr. C would have. So it makes me confused. And who's Richard?
Well, no, but well, yeah, but that's the thing. If Richard is the actor who plays Coop, because we're in the real world now, right?
Right.
Again, if you go with my theory on this, if he's in this real world version of Coop, which is where television is at today, right? That's the real world, because the focus on reality and everything else, and everything has to be gritty. Then you can't have a Cooper who's kind of morally pure, who spends his off time thinking about what was going on between Marilyn and the Kennedys. Can't happen. It has to be someone who's darker minded and willing to go outside the lines. So I think that if it is a continuation of Twin Peaks, it's going to be very much that. It's going to be about the Cooper and Diane characters. Shirley will be there, I'm sure, if it is, but I don't think we're getting the Laura Palmer story. I don't think we're getting something that simple ever again. I think Lynch at the end of this third season basically said, we're done with that for reals. That's why Laura no longer died. The central mystery of the series is done. She's missing now because it doesn't matter. It's over.
We don't even know if she existed, though. That's the thing. I was so upset at the end of that show. I stood up and I literally stood up out of my chair and I go, what the fuck? Like, because I was so like floored by this whole idea that he completely erased everything that I loved, everything that had happened before. And I thought to myself, well, what does this mean? What does this mean now?
So earlier you talked about it being so similar conceptually to the Who Shot JR thing, right?
Yes.
So what happened in Dallas?
I cannot remember because
a season went by after he was gone. Ratings plummeted, and at the end of the season, he reappeared in the shower alive, and they just ignored the season as a dream.
I remember. Yes, that's right.
So
I do remember that.
I think that something very similar might be happening right there. Whereas Lynch is saying, okay, so we're going to retcon it all because that's what they do when they get lazy now.
I see.
Again, I think it all is it's a metaphor for television, but that metaphor, that the metaphor he creates on the page, right, in the script page, is itself a metaphor for society. So there's like two layers of simile going on. And I think it's strong. I think it's really great. Like, I know a lot of people are talking about other things that they think are similar to that approach, but I don't think anything goes quite as deep as Long. And it's messy. I'm not one of these guys who thinks that Lynch is like very organized. He's not.
No.
But that's, sometimes you need that in order to get something as creative and as fulfilling as Twin Peaks. David Cronenberg knows his shots inside and out, and nothing that he doesn't have in his head ends up on screen, right? Mm-hmm. Or a Coppola or a Scorsese. Those guys know. I don't think Lynch goes at it that way at all. I think he has his ideas and he gets there and he free associates and allows the people he trusts to free associate. And if they end up in a place that he's pretty happy with because it's compelling, he's going to go with it.
Yeah. Well, he's doing something right, because I like him a lot, more than most other directors out there. And I would probably choose to watch something made by him over, something made by, maybe Spielberg or Scorsese. I mean, I like Spielberg. I like Scorsese, but they're mainstream to me, and Lynch it gives me something extra, he gives me something extra.
Spielberg is one of those great American tragedies, right? Because Jaws is strong stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's Benchley's story. I get it. Yeah. And we can talk about the changes, but that's not important. The important thing is he looked at this story that I consider to be modern Americana, and he put it on screen as best he could at that time, and it turned out to be the best version possible. But it wasn't because he had everything planned out great, because we know like the rig sank and this happened and that happened.
Right.
But the film that turned out was so great and so compelling that it changed cinema. People forget that, the Star Wars effect. People, oh, well, Star Wars changed summer movies. No, that was Jaws.
Yes.
So you have this happen to him as an artist, and it sets him down this road where now he can make either deadly serious dramas or, high adventure for kids. But he's trapped. And I think Lynch is trapped too, by the way, because I think there was a time when he had enough freedom to do something like The Straight Story, but he doesn't now. He could never get this something. If he just decided he wanted to make a, something bizarre, something out of his wheelhouse, a movie about about the best game show host ever.
Okay.
there would never be the funding for that.
No.
So I think they all get kind of trapped, but Lynch, because the work was so far out there, he had some leeway, but he can just never go normal again. He'll never find money for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that Wisteria is going to have some sort of angle, some sort of relation to Twin Peaks. But if it doesn't, I'm okay with that, because, I like everything else that David Lynch does. So, and plus, I don't really see Mark Frost signed on to this whole Wisteria thing. So, if he's not signed on, it might not be Twin Peaks.
I'm not convinced that Frost had as much to do with season 3 as people tend to believe.
No, I don't think he did.
I don't see fingerprints there at all. I mean, to be honest with you.
No, and you can tell if you read the books, because the books have such differences, between the show, and it made me confused a little bit. But I also understand that the two of them are coming from different angles all the time. So.
Well, the idea there is too that the books were written after the series takes place. So like, again, Laura never went missing. I think that there's a lot, of course, it's just a different world, and we keep trying to map things back, but everything changed so fundamentally that, I think what they came to the conclusion was that the world is splintered. Go do whatever you want to do. And Frost wrote those books. Be honest with you, I don't really like either book.
I don't either. And the reason I don't like the secret history, is because it's so difficult to read it. It's the way that it's set up. It's like a bunch of files, which is fine. I mean, I've done research before. I understand how that all goes together. It's just that it makes it a very difficult read for people. And the final dossier, it's all right, I guess, but
I don't like when writers, and I always watch myself as I do this, I don't like when the writer puts so much of their personal opinion inside a narrative that it draws attention to it. And like things like Richard Nixon having the ring, come on.
Yeah.
It's just so over the top, like, okay, we get it. You're a man of a certain age who really hated Richard Nixon. I get it, believe me, but it's like, this isn't Twin Peaks. This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, I was upset about the whole Lewis and Clark angle. I was like,
oh God, it goes on forever.
It does. And I'm like, why in the world is he? I don't understand why he wants to tie in history to all this, but I don't know. Mark Frost is he is a history buff. He likes history, and I think he finds it he finds enjoyment in tying in history to whatever it is he's writing. So I can see why he did it, but I also think it was just made it complicated and unnecessarily so, if you ask me.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it was the first new Twin Peaks anyone had gotten in 26 years, right? Mm-hmm. And we pick it up and we're reading about Lewis and Clark.
I know. I was shocked when I opened the book. I'm like, what is this? What is this?
It's just not. I mean, listen, I believe that artists should do what artists want to do. I hate the idea that the audience should have any part of the creative process, which we're starting to get now. Things like I know I'm in the minority here, but I hate the idea of the Snyder Cut. Hate it.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, I saw what I saw.
I know.
That's probably going to be it. But my big problem is, though, we all say we hate the idea of films going before test audiences and being changed based on a small group of test audiences. But I'm going to tell you, it's worse if it's a big test audience. If we set a movie out there and they don't like it and they take it back and cut it into what they think the audience want, this is how you end up with McFood and
Yeah.
McMansions.
Yes.
And this is how you end up with, the dandruff-free politicians. This is how you end up with, Stepford Wives. I don't want that. I'd rather see a glorious disaster than something that, look, everyone kind of likes.
A glorious disaster like Inland Empire?
No, there's nothing glorious about Inland Empire. I still have not completed it.
I have tried. Look, I've watched that movie at least 5 times now, and every time I get frustrated. I try. I really do. I want to like it. I try to like it. I try to figure out exactly what layer is what, but I find myself wanting at the end of it every single time. And
it's not there.
That's the thing too with and I know we weren't going to talk so much about season 3, but it just turned out this way. At the end of season 3, I told I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Cameron. It could have been James. I don't remember which, but I said, look, I'm angry because I feel like it was really good sex without any, payoff. It was like I was left wanting at the end, and it bothered me because I felt like he screams out, "What year is this?" And I'm like, oh my, right. What year is this? That's just changing the question again to another question, and I'm going to spend years trying to answer it.
Well, I can answer that question for you. Again, if you believe what I'm saying, if it's not 1989, if instead it's 2017, 16, whatever we watched season 3, then obviously he knows he's not in the same world, right?
The thing that bothered me about what year it might be is I was looking at her clothing. Her jacket was corduroy, with a Sherpa inside, and her shirt was like one of those. It had like a I don't know what you want to call that, like a gather right here, and I found that to be sort of early 2000s kind of look. Now, I don't know if that's exactly what it is. Obviously, the cars were modern and everything, but the To Go was not on the double R, which made me go, what is up with that? Because we're watching the whole season. It says double R to go.
Because no Meals on Wheels.
No Meals on Wheels.
Laura's not there.
Yeah, but wasn't the double R to go though was just their new update, like they were doing to go food just to update themselves. That's why the guy from 8 is Enough, you know who I mean when I say that, right? He comes in and he's trying to convince her to buy all these cheaper, ingredients for her pies, and she's against it. And I find that to be a pretty good allegory for pretty much everything that's been going on. Food, the quality of food has gone down. Look at McDonald's with their pink slime and all that, the hamburger meat with, Burger King, and all of these people, all of these restaurants using really less than quality ingredients for their food, which to me, we're putting up with that. We're saying by putting up with the fact that, we're still we're eating this food and we're not complaining.
We're doing worse than that. We're celebrating it.
Exactly. But she says no to him, which I really respected. And I could tell, for me, at least, it seemed like an allegory for everything that's going on, everything that's going wrong right now in all of consumerism, by us putting up with less quality products just because we don't have the time or the wherewithal to complain about these things and demand better. That's how I see it. I see it that way because I am a stay-at-home mom. And because I'm a stay-at-home mom, I have a lot of time on my hands to think about things and see things in a totally different light than people who, work all day. And I think that the problem is that people are overworked, so they just don't care about these little things anymore. And that's why McDonald's was able to get away with that, and Burger King was able to get away with that for so long. But we've got to take a stand.
Well, I think that there's another missed opportunity, especially with where Lynch went with it ultimately. I think there could have been a wonderful, heartbreaking moment for the audience, which the series doesn't have a problem doing, clearly. But
Right.
how wonderful would it have been if after Cooper, after Cooper and Diana and Gordon are in the basement, right, and they go towards David Bowie,
Yeah.
we fade to black, and what we get then is just a slow roll through town, and the Double R Diner is shuttered up and closed, and all the places that we know from the series that we're so in love with from the original series are just all gone. They're all just relics. They're just done. I think it could have been amazingly powerful.
Extremely. That would have been a very strong message to people about, nostalgia. I
About
think that,
nostalgia and about, again, compromise, because I think you're right. I think compromise is a major issue because when you talk about the decay of a society, which is what all noir is about, and I know you don't consider Twin Peaks to be horror, but at the very least you should be comfortable calling it a form of noir.
it is.
um, Noir is about decay, both intellectual and moral decay and physical decay. That's
Mhm.
kind of what it is. Yes, it has a look and it has a lighting style, but what it's about is decay. And I think that would have been the perfect cap image for the series. And then that you can still have your next episode where you do the whole Paige. I can't remember her first name at the moment. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could
Very.
still do that, Carrie Page. You could still do that, but I think it would be it would have been a nice, like, oh my god, this feels final.
Yeah. The whole thing, I just wish that when I watched it, I would have felt satisfied at the end.
I think
Eh,
you would have done better if it was 9 episodes. I'm telling you that the big problem the series has is that because it has so much space to work, that it doesn't feel as big as the box it's trying to fill.
mhm.
If it had been 9 episodes, you would have been like, oh my god, it opened up so many questions, it did this and that and that, and I know it's going to frustrate people, but I want more. I love it. But instead, because we got so much room, and some good stuff probably would have to die for us to get that 9 episode version, but I think we all would be way happier. I know you'll want to side with Lynch over Showtime, but I think Showtime was right about the length of the series.
I honestly think they were too, because I think that 18 episodes was too long.
Way.
They took 13 episodes to get Audrey back. Why? It didn't need to take that long for us to see Audrey. I wanted to see Audrey long before that episode. And then when they give us Audrey, they give us this weird, like, version of Audrey that doesn't even seem like Audrey. It seems like some suppressed version of her. Now, granted, I think we were actually seeing inside her mind, in her dream.
So
But
go back to episode 5 of season 1 and watch the invitation to love that's at the beginning of the second commercial break.
okay,
It's the Audrey scene from season 3 of her
is
talking to her
it?
husband. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to get to season 5 now.
Barely
Right now.
rewritten. Barely rewritten.
I'm definitely going to have to look.
What it's telling you is that, and remember where she ends up. People think she's in an insane asylum because they're kind of kneeling into the Frost book, which you shouldn't do because they're different things. No, she wakes in front of a lighted mirror. She's an actress. We're in the real world with Sherilyn Fenn at that
Well,
moment, and because what happened is that what Twin Peaks had disappeared for her at that moment, right? It's
yeah.
gone. So just at the end of the series, when everything gets erased, that she looks at, and suddenly she's in her makeup room in front of the lit mirror. That's what's going on. I mean, so I think the problem is they should have found a way to weave more of her in. But again, if it was 9 episodes and you waited 3 to see Audrey, you wouldn't be upset.
No.
Or nearly as upset. It's the length. It's the 18-hour, or well, it's more than that, but the 18-hour slog.
Yeah, I like your theory about her being in a makeup mirror. I didn't think of that because for me, it felt like the room was pure white and she was wearing a hospital gown. So I immediately went to she's waking up from a coma, or um, she's waking up from some sort of a psychogenic fugue of some sort. Um, I wasn't. I mean, I haven't really done a whole lot of deep thinking about that, but because of what happened to her, and because of how Richard turned out, I just kind of think maybe the poor woman just she lost her mind. I mean, if you were raped by Mr. C and while you were in a coma and had a baby and you didn't want and all that stuff. I mean, there is a theory though that might not be Mr. C's baby. That could be John Justice Wheeler's baby, but that's just a whole nother.
They
I'll
couldn't
get to that.
they couldn't afford that.
No.
I mean, listen, my take is my take. I'm not sure if it's a hospital robe as much as kind of a bathrobe, which is kind of what you wear between scenes if you're doing a wardrobe change. I really believe that the final episode is supposed to be a version of our world reflected by modern TV tropes, and that all of season 3 is kind of modern TV tropes invading the Twin Peaks we know, which is how the sound that gets in, right? So it's kind of set up that we have to leave the town. We have to go. And in fact, what does Cooper have to do? He has to drive a certain length away from the town of Twin Peaks. They have to escape it because it's just not part of the cultural landscape. It's not relevant. It's relevant to fans, of course, but that's the whole thing. It's not a nostalgic series besides a few scenes. And that itself is what splits fans. I will tell you, I never wanted us to have the opening shot of the series be a close-up of cherry pie and the camera pulls back and Norma and Shelley are smiling and welcoming. Oh, look, it's the sheriff. Never wanted that. I never wanted something cozy and made it that felt like homecoming. So in that respect, I got it. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you that I've watched season 3 8 times since it aired.
I've only seen it the one time.
I've seen it the one time. I've seen episode 8 probably 8 times.
Yeah.
I've seen individual episodes, including the first, a few times. But the problem is it's dense and it's long, and I just don't have the desire to tackle it right now in my life.
Yeah, the original run through, I saw the first and second episode probably a good 4 or 5 times. The same with episodes 2 or 3 and 4, because they played that like back to back or something like that. I can't remember exactly how that went, but I saw those ones more than once because they replayed on Showtime quite a few times, and I would watch them, during the day while I was folding laundry or doing chores or whatever. But after that, I kind of stopped rewatching them because I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know why I stopped rewatching them. I probably figured I would eventually rewatch the entire series again, once it got out on DVD or Blu-ray. I do have the DVD of it, and I will be rewatching it as I do this. But as far as the whole series goes, or the whole season 3 goes, I only saw it the one time through. So everything that I remember is me going back to 2017 and trying to recall it, which actually it must have had a huge effect on me because I honestly have pretty good memory of it all, considering, compared to like me watching Lost now and I barely remember a thing.
Well, I'm just not a television guy. I think that's the problem. It's really tough to convince me to sit down for episodic television. So Twin Peaks is an exception because, obviously it was the show from my youth that betrayed all my instincts. And I mean that in a great way. Like I'd written it off. David Lynch on television? Give me a fucking break. Really? The Blue Velvet guy? This ain't gonna work.
I know.
And it worked, So much goodwill. I mean, I can't tell you. I never stopped daydreaming about where I would take the story in a third season. 25, 26 years, I was still rolling through my head. And by the way, nothing like what happened.
I'd like to see what a Lauren third season would look like. That'd be cool.
Shorter and angrier.
Ooh, I like that.
I one thing, because again, I always envisioned it as, because it evolved. Like when the show was canceled, I actually got together in meetings with people who were referring to themselves as COOP, Citizens Opposed to the Offing of Peaks, Whereas we watched like the last 4 episodes at bars. I was a kid and I was going into bars to watch Twin Peaks with like all these strange adults. Um, and when it was over, right, that's when my daydreaming about it started. And it would evolve because as time went on, it had to evolve. But I had some core concepts that I thought would have been that great third season. They're impossible now. Not only because season 3 exists, but also because not that continuity is an issue in the world of Twin Peaks, but certainly how characters have been used would have changed.
Mhm.
I really liked the idea of, I'll just say my big idea was that we always assumed that Bob was just one possessing spirit, right?
Mhm.
I love the idea that everyone in Twin Peaks had a little Bob in them. And that
Ooh, that's
and that
good.
depending on the situation and the stressful environment, the level of Bob came to the surface. And that kind of would be what the third season was in my world, would have been like, as the situation gets progressively worse, we're dealing with a whole lot of psychosis, a whole lot of Bob infestation, however you want to look at it.
That is a really, really good idea. I really would have enjoyed that. Now he kind of did do something a little bit like that, but he took it into I think he took it more into like outside environment affecting people on the inside, like with the girl with the itchy pits,
Mm-hmm.
which what in the hell? That's just gross.
Well, it's
But
because you wouldn't do something like that in public, right? You just wouldn't, like in polite society. Again, think 1950s television, you'd never see that. 1980s television, you wouldn't see that. 2020, yeah, you'd see it.
well, the thing is, she's got this rash, right? And
Mhm.
she's itching, and her skin is all like decaying. That's how I saw it. Like this is another way he's showing decay.
Right.
He's showing it
But
through the sparkle drug. I'd like to know more about sparkle, by the way. They were doing cocaine and everything in the old show.
sure.
What is with this sparkle thing? I really wanted to know more about it, but we never got to find out more about it because he didn't finish anything. Nothing got finished.
Well,
It drives me crazy.
sure. And the local drug dealer who's dating, the Shelley also probably is a form of some kind of magician. I don't know. But, and I mean real magician. I don't mean like a stage one.
No, I
But
know. Like he's got some sort of weird, like, you know, black lodge power.
yeah. So I think though, like, it's the darkness in the woods from the first season. It's that discussion. It's at this point, the darkness is no longer in the woods. It is again that sound that has gotten into the community. But of course, what we're really talking is about like the modern world has gotten there. I listen. Episode 8 is not a mistake. It starts with the bomb being tested, right?
Right.
But where do we immediately go? To a radio station, and we broadcast from there. So we're talking that intermingling of media and kind of the loss of American innocence.
Right.
And then you look at the first season of Twin Peaks, which is obviously filled with such 1950s imagery. All you need is Audrey dancing to the jukebox, and you get it. That scene can take place in 1955 or it can take place in 1989.
Right.
It doesn't really matter because the town still kind of has that 50s thing, but now you have you have the homecoming queen using drugs and having multiple boyfriends and getting killed, and the outside world is finally descended on Twin Peaks. That's what the first season is. That's what the event of Laura Palmer's murder is. I mean, Sheriff Truman even says, we're thankful to have all this help because this doesn't happen here, right?
Right. I
Right.
remember. Yeah.
So it's like, but in a way, I would argue too that there's a certain anti-authoritarian thing going on, because when Cooper enters the town, he's almost damning the town, because once the FBI, which is the outside, show up, it doesn't matter how good your intentions are, it's gonna make things worse, and it does. But in the second season, we have shootouts, with the drug muling, and they go over the border, and that causes a showdown. If you think about it, Cooper brings a whole lot of bad to town.
He does. He does. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, he really does. But I don't know. I just wish that I just wish that season 3 had more substance to it so that I would be able to grasp more. But instead, I still feel wanting. I still feel unsatisfied. I didn't feel that way at the end of season 1. I felt like, wow, at the end of season 1. This was awesome. I remember every single Monday, I'd go into my accounting class and we'd all be talking about Twin Peaks, all of us. It was like the major water cooler thing to talk about. That was back when all TV was episodic. You had to wait a week for a new episode, and I kind of liked that about the replay of season 3. I like the fact that they still made us see it once a week. It wasn't like you could just go get it streaming and stream it all at once. I did enjoy that part of it.
Well, no one would have, though. That's the irony. We all think we would have, but everyone would have burnt out 4 episodes in. Like, even though it's hardcore, wouldn't have made it all 18 episodes. It wouldn't have happened.
I did. I made it, but it's
No, but I'm saying if you could stream them one after another and just binge the whole thing, no one was making it through that.
No. Even I couldn't even do like the season 1 all the way through without like having to stop and think for a little bit. Even just the pilot episode. That's why I'm doing it this way, because I know it's going to take me a long time doing it once a week to get through all of it. But I wanted to do it that way because that's pretty much the way that I saw it, one episode at a time. So it's going to take me a long time to get through all the episodes and all the seasons, but I think it'll be fun and I think it'll be worth it in the end. So
I think it's a great programming idea. That scene in that a lot of people have issues with, but when word gets through town that Laura's dead, and we get into the classroom and the kids are all sad, and there's the girl running through the schoolyard.
yeah.
I really think that it's funny because that scene is literally the town realizing that the modern world has caught up to them. It's like everyone is so deeply affected in the town, and not that you wouldn't be by a murder, but it's something deeper than that, and you can feel it.
Yeah.
It really does feel like this town has lived in isolation and security, and that it's over. That morning, we find a body on the beach, and it's over.
It hit me at home because at the time I was going to a very small school and my graduating class was only 60 people. And when you go to a small school like that, the homecoming queen, the prom queen, they actually mean quite a bit. They control quite a bit. They're highly, looked up to, and they have to be kind of a leader. So when I watched the first season, I kind of equated that Laura Palmer-ness to, my own experience in my own school and what it's like to be the best friend of the prom queen. Because I was the best friend of the prom queen. I was not the prom queen. I was the best friend.
I will never see you as a Donna. I'm sorry. That's not
I know it's hard to see me as a Donna, but it is true. I wasn't Donna though. I mean, I wasn't the naive type. I was I moved in from a big school. I had experiences that none of my girlfriends ever had. Nobody in my school was wearing jeans. I remember I went into school the first day wearing jeans, and all the other girls are wearing dress pants with the bottoms tight rolled still. This is like the early 90s. You don't tight roll your pants in the early 90s anymore. Their hair was still like mall hair and the whole thing. And I was like, I came in there and I said to my friend Lori, you got to change your look. You got to change your look. I made my boyfriend change his look because, you go into a small school, they're stuck. They're stuck in this rut that's behind everybody else. And me coming in from a bigger school, they were all like, whoa, this girl's got a different kind of style, a different way of being. So I was never the Donna. I was more, I don't want to say I was a Laura either, because, I obviously I didn't have like the home life that Laura was having. I didn't have that kind of issue going on, but I did lead a bit of a double life. I would, go to school and I was Miss Perfect in school and I would get the good grades and I did the cheerleading and all that stuff. But as soon as I was out the door of the school, and in my car, cigarette in hand, whether I was wearing my uniform or not, I didn't care. As long as I was in my car, it was my business. I'd go home, I'd smoke cigarettes in my room. I smoked weed back then. I was drinking back then. I remember going to many, many parties. It was like, the movie Varsity Blues, how they go to the party after the football game. That's exactly what it was like, but I'd go in my uniform and be drinking the Bush beer, with my uniform on. So I was more of my double life was there, but nobody at school, unless you were my friend, really realized it.
This is
So
going to shock you, but I've never seen Varsity Blues.
what? Oh
No,
my
it shouldn't
God.
shock you at all. It's a sports movie. That would never happen. I would never sit down to watch a sports movie.
Okay, so I don't really like a lot of sports movies at all, but that one I do. That one and Friday Night Lights. They're the only ones that I really like. And, well, I guess I like The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but it's hilarious. They got drunk cheerleaders.
Oh,
It's
so
awesome.
it's a comedy and a sports movie. Yeah, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
freaking perfect. I'll get right on that.
Oh, it's so funny though. I mean, they got drunk cheerleaders they get from a strip club because they're all on like strike. So they have to bring in all these replacement football players, and all of them have some sort of like issue or problem. And it turns out they all end up being really good, and the cheerleaders are funny. I really get a kick out of the drunk cheerleaders. It just cracks me up. Um, but Varsity Blues is a movie that I highly recommend. It's not your average football movie. I don't even really think of it as like a sports movie. I think of it more like a coming of age movie, because to me it's about rebelling against authority, and I like that. And that's why I like that one. And plus it's got, collective soul songs, which I love that.
So you're like rocking out to Gel.
World I Know, I think, is in that one. And also Hero, the Hero song from Foo Fighters.
I'll never forget when the Collective Souls, the first album, was coming out, and the rep was in the store, and he's like, "Oh, this is." I'm like, "Well, what does it sound like?" And he goes, "It just everything sounds like Pearl Jam. It's just Pearl Jam. Don't worry about it. Just play it."
I didn't like, you know what? I would rather listen to Collective Soul all day long compared to Pearl Jam. I
Oh,
mean,
listen. Pearl Jam's first album is a stone cold classic. I haven't
it
liked
is.
anything since.
No, me either. Me either. I mean, I'll listen to Jeremy and I'll listen to that whole first album, but after that, I was like not interested in Vitology at all. I remember my grandma, she bought it for me for Christmas because she was like, oh, Jamie, she likes Pearl Jam. And I didn't like that one so much.
I was a big Mother Love Bone fan, so I was going into Pearl Jam with skeptical ear anyway. I'm like, no Andrew Wood. Is this gonna work? And this surfer dude from California, he's not. Yeah, I don't know. But that first album is what it is. Now it's all Mother Love Bone riffs recycled, by the way, but
Yeah.
it really works. It's a really great album. And then Versus came out, and holy hell, that's a bad album. And then Vitology and No Code. Oh my god, I was like, I'm so out. I'm not even giving him the opportunity. I know there's people who love him, but holy hell, not me.
I know. I remember all my friends were like, "Oh, have you heard the new Pearl Jam?" And I'm like, "Yeah." What do you? Why do you want to listen to that? They were only good in the beginning. That's what I used to say. But then people used to call me a music snob all the time because I didn't. I might like one album from a band, and then if the next album doesn't do it for me, I won't ever listen to them again.
Well, I mean, it's just a weird thing for me because I loved alternative as a wave. I think it's the last great wave of rock and roll. Now, mind you, I think there's a lot of great rock and roll being produced right now, but you can't call it a wave because the mainstream media just will never let it come back. But
I miss MTV.
I fear what MTV would be today if it was still playing videos, though. So I'm of two minds on it. I listen. I love my satellite radio. I'll listen to Octane all day, and I'll get modern rock and roll. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I think that the problem with alternative was also the great thing about alternative it's that a movement like that, whether you're talking about punk rock or new wave or alternative, really only has 3 good years in it. After that, it's gonna tail off as people who shouldn't be performing that type of music decide to perform it because it's what's popular and making money. And certainly by the time we get to, Deep Blue Something and bands like that, I'm not picking on some good songs, but let's face it, they weren't Soundgarden or Alice in Chains.
Mm-mm.
They weren't. And the problem is, too, like, I hate to say it this way, but once you got past new wave in the 80s, you got to hair metal, very popular but unsustainable. But after that, rock was never going to be big again, really. Alternative had literally 3 years before it became like people were rushing for the exit doors as soon as Dr. Dre The Chronic came out. And it was because you only had 3 years of like really powerful music in that movement.
See, I was liking things like the Violent Femmes and The Cure, like way before.
When it was still being called college rock.
Yes. Like when MTV first came out, I remember like they would play like The Cure and they would play Violent Femmes, Gone Daddy Gone, long before. And I fell in love with that stuff. And none of my other friends were carrying it all. They wanted to listen to Rick Springfield, or Tony Basil, stupid crap like that. And here I am like rocking the Violent Femmes, and they're like, man, why do you like this? Listen to the Violent Femmes. I still will listen to that album.
That first album is freaking brilliant.
Fantastic. It's the best thing. I love it. I mean, I was just listening to it like last week. I'm completely still obsessed with Violent Femmes and always will be. I really love them. And The Cure too, but I don't really hear much of them anymore.
I have issues with The Cure, but I think that it's funny because, to bring this back to Twin Peaks is kind of like alternative rock because it never was going to last very long. There's a reason it died after 2 seasons, because people weren't going to handle odd time signatures and weird production in, unrefined vocals in music, and they weren't going to deal with too many Red Room Dreams, and they weren't going to deal with the Little Pine Weasel. They just weren't. So it was always going to be this glistening like city on a hill. And I'm glad we got season 3. I as much as I can pick it, season 3, I do love it. I think there's a lot of things that we were never going to get anywhere else except in a season 3 of Twin Peaks. But Lynch really has left himself nowhere really to go in some ways. So I'm really interested in the new project, but I also fear it.
Me too. I'm scared that it's going to be, another bomb, another thing that people are going to complain about or have a lot to. I'm going to try my best to like it. And usually when I go into something, I go in with no expectations. That's what I tried to explain to everybody. I remember before season 3 hit, everybody for like a whole year before was speculating, constant speculation on what is it going to be about? What's going to be, who's going to be in it? And, what's the plot points going to be? And are they going to solve this? And are they going to do that? And I just was like shaking my head and rolling my eyes the whole time, because in my opinion, you can't go into Lynch like that. You have to go for the ride. Buy the ticket, take the ride, right?
Yeah.
That's how I view most things. Is I go into it with a completely open mind and no expectations. That way I won't get disappointed, by things that other people tend to get disappointed about. I remember coming into Cameron's streams after the show every Sunday, and people would be like pissed about this or pissed about that. And I'd be like, don't freak out. Just relax, enjoy the ride.
It's that fan ownership.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean you should like everything. I have strong opinions, and I like some things that no one likes, and I dislike things that everyone likes occasionally. My opinions actually are pretty normal on most things. It's just on a few push button issues people seem to react strongly with my opinions. But my opinion is my opinion, like it's honest. But I do hate this sense of ownership people take over things. Star Wars is just as good as example of Twin Peaks. Like,
Oh, big time.
why do people think that it has to be just this one thing? Like, really, at some point, then just watch your first goddamn 3 films and be done.
Exactly. Why
If you want Twin Peaks to just be the first season, go watch the first season because it exists.
right.
I would rather Lynch swing for the fences and maybe only hit a ground roll double. Is that a thing? I'm not sure. I'm just saying words I've heard before. But then hit a home run, right?
Mhm.
As long as he swung for the fences. But too much of the time we get things that are just trying to safely get onto a base, right? That's all they want. And I'm done with all that. I can't get myself excited in the horror genre about American horror very often, except if it's maybe an A24 release. Other than that, I'm skeptical. You know, I saw The Unholy, the Ghost House film that came out last week. It's friggin' awful.
Is it?
Spoilers, friggin' awful. Yeah,
Oh no, I've been looking forward to that one. Oh, we have a guest.
cool.
Christian.
We talking Twin Peaks in here or what?
Well, we were talking about The Cure a moment ago, but yes.
Well, yeah, we were talking Twin Peaks. I swore I was only going to talk about the pilot, and then we end up talking about season 3 like the whole time. I'm obsessed with season 3, so I suppose it's going to go that way every single Twin Peaks Tuesday. Do you have
Sounds
any
good to me.
thoughts
I'll
on
watch
the
that.
pilot? Yeah, well, I'm going to
season 3?
rewatch that. Well, I was going to say, do you have any thoughts on the pilot? Because we were supposed to be focusing on the pilot episode, but
I'm
have you
sure I'm like
seen-
the rest. What's up? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, have you seen the both releases of the pilot, the American and the international version?
Probably just the American version. Whatever was on Netflix, and then that Blu-ray set that's blue and it's got the first 2 seasons and the movie. That's what I've got. So
That's what I have too. The international pilot is on there, so you can see the difference between that and the original pilot that played in America. But the parts that they filmed for the international pilot, they end up using later in the show. So it all kind of ties together.
I mean, I love the pilot. I mean, I'm sure I was just like the rest of the world when they were watching it. Everybody was just like, "Oh my god!" And then about 4 episodes in, they start. Remember that? You remember that movie, The Hangover, when you see Zach Galifianakis and all the numbers start going through the back of their head, and you just figured that's probably what the rest of the world started doing as the show started going on. Like, what's going on? You know?
Yeah,
So.
for me, it wasn't like that. I think because I had certain expectations. I already was a big Lynch fan, and I knew that some of my friends were, fans of Lynch. So I knew that I was going to go to school and I was going to have people to talk about, Twin Peaks with. And I thought it was going to be good. My mom immediately came rushing into my room as soon as she found out about it and was like, "You need to watch this show." Now, it was up against 90210 at first, if I remember right. And I was like, I don't know. But I ended up just watching Twin Peaks and, recording 90210 back in the days when you still had VCRs. So,
What's that? I don't know what that is.
It says so much that Jamie was deciding whether to watch Twin Peaks or 90210, and I was deciding whether to watch Twin Peaks or Dark Shadows.
My mom was doing that. My mom was watching Dark Shadows, I believe. I was watching Twin Peaks and, like I said, taping 90210. You don't know 90210, Christian?
I do. I'm the young guy, so I'm just screwing with y'all.
Christian, do you realize that there was a revival show of Dark Shadows in the 90s?
I do. I have not watched it. I've had people tell me all the time to watch Dark Shadows, but I've never.
With Ben Cross taking over the Jonathan Frid Barnabas role. It's good. It's pretty solid. Which is the problem, too, because in second season Twin Peaks, it hits that lull. I'm not going to pretend.
That's my least favorite season.
I was recording one and I was watching the other. There were some episodes that Dark Shadows won that war.
I bet.
I can believe that.
When season 2 just got so convoluted and out of control, and there was so much weird stuff in it, but still, I mean, now I guess because it's been 31 years, Um, I think I have specific love for episodes before that I actually hated before, because maybe it's just nostalgia, but like I used to hate the pine weasel stuff, and I used to not really like the what was that little boy's name with the devil horns? I can't remember his name, but I didn't like that stuff at first. And I don't know. I didn't like the uh what's her face? The redhead girl that comes in and marries the old man.
Oh,
Who likes
Lana.
redheads
Lana.
anyway?
Lively.
Lana. Lana.
Yeah.
See, my problem is that there's nothing that's central after a certain point. Like the Wyndham Earl plot should be central, but it doesn't feel central at all because
No.
they're just stringing you along with Wyndham. It's like, oh, we'll give you 3 Wyndham scenes in an episode, and that's enough to be a central plot. And it's not.
Mm-mm.
It's not. But yet we keep going around. Oh, okay. So now we're going to do this with these characters. We're going to do this with this. And like, none of those plots ever comes to anything. They're just kind of things that happen.
That's kind of how I feel about season 3, because I feel like there's a bunch of stuff like in there too
but that
not enough of it.
To me, the thematics of 3 pull it through. Like the second half of season 2, just man, it's just scattershot. And the thing is, we like the characters so much that we keep watching. But honestly, it's like, give Andy something to do if I'm going to watch him. Something real, like he's a cop, right?
Yeah.
Can we stop with like, yeah? But there was
he's a
never
bumbling cop.
But that's fine. Let's see that. I mean, but consider like the end of season 1, he fires a gun and it's a big deal. He has his Dirty Harry moment, right? Mm-hmm. But then that character never gets to do anything even remotely like that again.
Well, Lauren, sometimes in life people just don't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we're not talking about life, dude. We're talking about TV.
We're talking about David Lynch. I'll tell you my only complaint about season 3. My favorite character wasn't in it. I love the sheriff from the first season. Or I guess the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
But Dana was in it. Dana Ashbrook's his name,
yep.
Right? I love Dana Ashbrook. He has my favorite moment in season 3. And I still can't figure out if it's the most hilarious moment of the show or the moment when I think it's like the first couple episodes where they're going through all this police file work where the Native American guys like looking through all this stuff and they pull out boxes and they have a picture of Laura and Dana Ashbrook sees it and he starts crying. And I feel like David Lynch told him, all right, here's the line. I want you to just go over it just a little bit. Because I can't figure out if it's the funniest thing because he cries like a baby. I can't tell if it's the funniest thing or the most dramatic thing. I can't figure it out. Every time I watch it, I feel the other way. But I love Dana Ashbrook on season 3. He's my favorite.
It is
Besides
awkward.
Dougie, I love Dougie.
Oh, I love Dougie too. So many people hate him, and I love Dougie. I thought Dougie was the best part of the show.
Well, he's the bumbling idiot, but like kind of like what Lauren was saying, he's doing something, and you can't wait to see what kind of trouble he gets himself into. But instead, he's getting other people in trouble. I loved it. It was ridiculous, but season 3 is my favorite. I can take or leave season 2. I love the first. I love season 1. I mean, I really like season 1 because I like Laura Palmer's dad and that one a lot. But in season 2, I was just Sydney got through it. She couldn't take her eyes off of any of it. She loves it, but I was just through a lot of it, But maybe in 30 years, I'll love it. These other David Lynch movies I've seen. Eraserhead I liked, but Elephant Man, Sydney loves it, and I watched that. And I told she's like, "What do you think?" I said, "Give me 4 years so I can decide what I think about Elephant Man." But that seems to be a trait with that dude. You can't. Mulholland Drive, the same thing. I'm still trying to figure out if I like it or if I just think it was way too long.
Love Mulholland Drive.
Me too. It fights with the top spot with Fire Walk with Me all the time for like my favoriteest Lynch film.
We are in lockstep there.
Yeah,
I got to rewatch Fire Walk with Me.
Oh, it's so good.
The only my pet peeve with Fire Walk with Me is that nowhere in the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks does Lynch just elbow in on traditional Christian imagery. And then he does the angel thing. And,
yes.
it breaks me every time because it's cheap. It's cheaper than the show. He wanted to say, oh, look, she's redeemed. There's this is an artist that always goes for the odd choice. Having an angel show up to redeem her is about the laziest frickin' choice you could. I'm not saying it's not beautifully filmed, and obviously Badalamenti's music sells it.
Oh,
But
so
Jesus Christ, the show's always innovative. The movie up to that point is incredibly innovative, and then we get the angel, and I'm like, oh fuck, really?
Yeah, the angel thing still gets to me too. I never understood it. I never understood why exactly the angel is the one that shows up. Maybe
I
it's
don't think it's
because
supposed to
I'm
be.
Canadian.
Well, me too, but I don't think it's supposed to be literally a real angel. I think it's supposed to be some form of projection, some kind of like
Yeah,
flesh metaphor. I get it, but again, it's just the laziest possible way storytelling trope to do it.
yeah.
And Lynch is never that lazy. And again, it would be different if that was always part of the
Today's
show.
number.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I can't help but watch those. I can't help but watch those every single day.
Oh, I don't know if you
I'm
saw
like, this. Why is he doing this?
I don't know if you saw the beginning of when I was talking, but what I said was Agent Cooper gives a weather report to Diane when he's talking into his dictaphone the first time. And I thought, oh my God, that sounds exactly the way that David Lynch does it every single day. So it made me wonder if like there's some sort of tie-in. I mean, I'm hoping that this Wisteria thing is a tie-in somehow. And I'm hoping that these little clues are cluing us all into that. But I don't want to get my hopes up because when I do, then I usually get disappointed. So
I think he's got all y'all fooled. That man ain't up to nothing. That son of a bitch is doing a weather report. That son of a bitch is pulling balls out of numbers. I think David Lynch has gone all this time and he goes to bed saying, Jesus Christ, they haven't figured this out yet. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kidding.
I'm going to make a chair tomorrow. It will have 5 legs. That's one more leg than normal, so it'll be even more sturdy.
I don't even watch those, and here's why. I do every once in a while, but here's why I don't. Because every time I do, I end up looking at the comments underneath and I start getting fucking pissed. Because I'm tired of these I don't know what to call them. They're like worshipers, you know. To them, David Lynch does no wrong. They say the most sickest, disgusting, sappiest crap. I don't think he wants to hear the sappy crap either. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that even respects that at all.
There's no way he's reading the comments. There's zero chance he's reading the comments.
No, and when he was going to quit doing the weather reports, and he said, I'm going to make an announcement, and everybody went crazy.
Cameron went crazy. He was live streaming. I pulled up his live stream, and when David Lynch goes, I'm going to keep doing the weather reports, I was laughing my ass off.
I know, me too.
You guys seem to like them.
And you know what it is? I bet you anything. I will bet you $1 million that Sabrina, she reads it, right? And she goes to David and she says, David, you can't quit doing these. The people will lose their minds. Do you understand just by telling them that you are going to make an announcement that the entire Twittersphere has gone insane? Facebook has gone insane. YouTube has gone insane. Everybody's lost their minds over one little tiny sentence that you said. And I'm sure he was like, shit. Now I have to do it because he doesn't want to disappoint people, you know? And I understand that. But if these people underneath in the comments weren't so like, I love you so much. I worship every single piece of ground you walk on. I will kiss your pooping ass or whatever, you know, it's just, that's gross, but I just don't like it. I don't like it.
I don't think that, first of all, he's a man with a few years behind him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's on the back nine.
At this point, does he want to take on anything? That's an open question. That's a fair question. He doesn't need to do shit. His place in entertainment history is pretty secure.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he's doing something else, and I believe he'll do something. It might end up being 9 minutes short with only finger puppets. We don't know, but that should be enough for people. You know, we're getting something else. Cool. But you know what? I don't think he's living and dying for the artistic pursuits that people think he is. I think pretty much he's like, if I feel like doing it, I'll go do it.
Yeah,
He's a
and that's
badass.
fine with me. That's fine with me. If he wants to, like when he did that whole little video with the bees, I loved that. I was like, this is fantastic. I want to see him do the videos with the bees. I don't care about his number draws so much. I mean, I'm sure there's somehow going to be a tie-in with this new show or that he's working on with
Or
these
not.
number draws. But
What new show? What is he doing? Because I don't keep up that much. I'm a casual David Lynch guy. I'm starting to watch his movies more, but like, what is he doing? All I know is he's pulling balls out of a jar.
no,
Christian,
he
there's
has
not a lot of
some,
good answers.
there is something going on. The working title is Wisteria / Unrecorded Night. And there
Is this about that? Is this another monkey short or something he's making?
It's possible. We don't know.
It is possible. It's possible, but I'm hoping it's not. I think it's actually going to be a longer series. I don't think it's going to be a 15-minute short like that.
Oh, I've got the confirmation right here. He's gonna do an hour and a half. It's gonna be 3 hours, and he's just gonna compile 340 days worth of today's numbers, and they're just gonna play back to back in a row,
That's
and it's gonna be a masterpiece.
I kind of thought when he said it, because initially we were hearing about Unrecorded Night more than we were hearing about Wisteria. And I really thought it's like, how hilarious would it be if it was a blank, silent screen for an hour and a half called Unrecorded Night?
that would be a really big troll. That would be a really, really big
Sorry,
troll.
guys, it's unrecorded. There's
Yeah.
nothing there.
And how many? How good would Criterion put it out?
Oh god, in an instant.
Yeah.
Have they put out everything he's done? Damn near.
Well,
I
they don't.
think
They don't have
on
Lost Highway.
We don't have Lost Highway on a Criterion.
No, someone else has it. I have the import, so I don't know. I didn't wait for it to be domestic.
Well, I need to update all my stuff because all my David Lynch stuff is old.
Criterion are such a weird company. I know people are always licking their dick, but you know what? They've released some substandard editions of things. They have. I'm still kind of angry about the presentation, I should say, of Night of the Hunter, which is one of my favorite films. It's softer than even the television version. I don't get it. But everyone has this reputation as the gold standard. I don't know if that's true. Always.
Like
And
Night of the Hunter,
Dan knows Kino has Lost Highway, except he
Night
said
of the-
Hogway.
Night of
That's
the
a different
Hunter.
movie.
Is that like you mean the old black and white movie about
Yeah.
the serial killer guy? Oh, that was good. That is
Such
good
a
movie.
great fucking movie.
Oh my god, so good.
Oh yeah.
What's the name of that actor that is in it?
That,
My-
now you're killing me.
Oh no,
Robert Mitchum.
that's it.
As I
I
pull
love
up a Google to Google it because my mind is like exhausted. But yeah, no, and directed by the great Charles Loddington, his only film. Married to the great Elsa Lanchester. And that's what he makes. I love the fact that that's what he makes. A film that deals with like killing women and children.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that when I was a little kid, and I was very disturbed by it. I remember being really disturbed by it, but at the same time, I remember thinking, this is fantastic. I was probably 8. I think I saw that around the same time that I saw Elephant Man. And the only reason I ever saw Elephant Man is because my teacher in 2nd grade, she showed it to the whole class as like a learning thing. And I was like fascinated with it. And then I remember my mom was like, well, that movie's going to be on HBO. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, I sat down and I watched that movie over and over and over and over again to the point where I was 8 years old and I had a crush on David Lynch. I thought David Lynch
On the
was
Elephant
hot.
Man.
No.
I'm not an animal.
Yeah, I had a
What
crush
though?
on the Elephant Man. No, I had a crush on David Lynch because, see, I understood, to me, in my opinion, I understood that he wanted to tell this difficult and trying story about this man with this horrific ailment. And
I think he looks goofy as hell. Look at that bastard. Look at him.
I know. My kid's hair looks just like that. I'm telling my kid every day, oh my God, you have totally David Lynch hair. David Lynch would be so jealous right now.
Take me to the salon. I want the cut the young kids have now.
I want to look like an emo kid from the Hot Topic. What do they listen to today? Is it still the Panic at the Disco?
Oh my God. I like them.
I like the first album. Everything else after that, man, no.
I only have the first
Remember when they
album.
were a rock band, not a just
Yeah,
bad pop
That's
band?
what I remember. I didn't even know they were still playing.
That
No,
guy's
this is the
great.
one guy, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it just him? He's Panic at the Disco.
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but
Yuri
yes.
something. Brendan
Wow.
Urie.
Yes.
There, my mind's starting to work.
It is. Mine is not.
I'll tell you what, though. I'll say this about the Elephant Man. I thought that was a cool movie, like visually, like that put me in the mood to watch more black and white stuff. And what I loved about it was this is my only problem with older movies now. I've overcome a lot, but I love that it was beautiful and stereo, and the audio was so great
Yes.
and sounded so crisp and clear. But it looked old, and I mean that was a really cool timepiece. I mean, and Anthony Hopkins was great. You know, it was great to see him. I've never seen him in much besides Silence.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I guess he really can't act. You know, I mean, I've just seen him in the one movie, but he
Not
did
that
a
you
good
can
job.
tell because not that you can tell in Coppola's Dracula where he's just chewing scenery. Period.
I can't believe he was that goofy. You know, he had a chance to. But then again, I mean,
Coppola's Dracula is like the most frustrating film for me because there's stuff that I love about it, but as much of the stuff that I love about it, there's stuff that I detest about it. It's a really frustrating film.
I remember my mom, I wouldn't watch anything black and white for the longest time. I was like, I'm not watching that because it's black and white. And then I'd be like, well, grandma's got that on Sunday, every Sunday at the house. And I don't want to watch it because grandma watches it. And all this stuff.
You were a little fucking bitch as a kid, weren't you?
I could be. Yeah, I was. Well, I was just, I had a very high vocabulary for a child. My mom said, you know what? You're ridiculous. And I'm going to prove you wrong. And I'm going to make you watch something that I know is going to make you cry and you're going to love it. And it's black and white. And you're never going to say this about black and white movies again.
This is going to make you cry. Please turn it off. Please turn it off.
She made me sit and watch Wuthering Heights. And I fell in love with it. I didn't care at all that it was black and white. I only cared about the story, and she proved me wrong. And from that day forward, I never complained whether a movie was black and white or in color ever again. And I never, stuck my tongue out at some black and white thing because it was black and white.
Everything was black and white when I was growing up. And I don't mean that because it wasn't, but I watched everything on that small television upstairs, and it was a black and white television. Yeah. Everything. The first time I saw The Exorcist was black and white. The first time I saw Halloween, it was black and white. So, so like a film from the 30s, 40s, early 50s, not a problem because I didn't have a way to realize what was old and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Did watching those movies on a black and white TV make the old movies even more blacker and whiter?
No, because you're also talking about everything was like coming in through regular broadcasts through rabbit ears. So you believe me, everything looked old. But it was. I wouldn't change it though, because the things I love today were really positively affected by the fact that I did not have. I had blinders, so I didn't have blinders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
So I mean, but even there, it's like. I kind of hate the idea that black and white signifies old in movies. Even episode 8 of Twin Peaks. Oh, we'll have the rest of this episode will be in black and white to showcase that it's old. To me, that seems cheap too. Like, I just don't. I don't know. Especially considering that color films were being commercially released in the early 30s. It doesn't even really make sense if you think about it.
Right.
Let me ask y'all something about Twin Peaks. I've never even asked my wife this. I'm assuming Jamie maybe more so than Lauren. Were you more frustrated with the end of season 2 or the end of season 3?
The end of season 3.
Why?
because it wasn't what I wanted. And like I told Lauren earlier, it was like having really good sex with no payoff. So
Story of my life.
I felt like, I was left wanting. And I did not feel that way necessarily at the end of season 2, which
it's a little bit unfair though, because we went through a really hard period in season 2, right?
Right.
And then Lynch came in and gave us that final episode,
which was fantastic.
Right. So you felt pretty triumphant, like, oh no, it all came together. Whereas 3, he directed the whole thing, and I'll agree, like especially his use of intentional use of primitive special effects in season 3. When you get to the end, that final fight, it feels really anticlimactic because of that decision. But you can live with that decision, I think, because of what comes after, right? I can anyway. It's weird because I've seen other artists do that where they intentionally use bad effects for the effect of it, and it works. Season 3, it works at times and it doesn't work at other times. It's a little bit weird. Again, if they were just focused on making 9 episodes, I think it would have been tighter and worked, and it wouldn't have been distracting. It's just too long.
Why does Bob end up getting killed by Green Glove Freddy? It doesn't make any freaking sense to me. Why?
He had to die. He had to go.
Yeah,
well, that character doesn't make a bit of sense to me.
No, I don't understand it. I don't understand the idea that just some random dude, is told by the giant,
Which off screen,
right, that he's got this purpose and that he has to go to Twin Peaks, Washington, to fulfill his destiny.
Which is the punch of an orb.
Yeah. And it's such bad, horrible special effects when his face just breaks apart, and it's horrible. It's horrible. I was not happy with that.
Jamie, you might find this interesting. As somebody who barely got through season 2, and I really don't remember much at all, by the time I got to season 3, when I was watching it, Sydney, she's like, she doesn't want to talk to me about it while we're watching it because she's on a whole different level in what she's thinking. And I was like, Sydney, I've already got this season figured out. She's like, what? I'm like, okay, so with Dougie, David Lynch is trying to comment on today's America. It's the stupid people who become famous for absolutely no reason and get ahead in life. So that's why Dougie is dumb, but he's figuring all this stuff out, and he's in the right places at the right time. He's getting all these people in trouble, and he's getting money, and he's getting rich, and he has no skills whatsoever. The Kardashians. So I was like, that's what it's about. And she goes, no, it's not even close. I was like, well, what is it about? And she's like, I'm not telling you. I've got my own ideas. But to me, that's what Dougie was. He was representing stupid America getting ahead.
You are 100% on the right track there, sir.
Yeah. We haven't
I knew it.
He is the...
Cameron.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
Dougie is the sitcom portion of the show.
So you agree with me then?
Absolutely.
I can't wait to rub it in her face. I'm like, dude, I knew it.
Dougie
Sydney.
is Forrest Gump. It's the same
Yeah.
thing as Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Be dumb, get ahead in the world. But I'm trying to figure out why David Fincher ripped off that scene in 7 with the box out there out in the desert with the Mitchum brothers.
It just, I don't know, an homage. Maybe he just liked it so much. I thought it worked pretty well with the pie being in the box.
No, totally. I'm just saying stylistically, it looks exactly like the scene in 7.
It does. The only thing I can think of is that he liked it so much he wanted to pay tribute.
That would be fascinating to me because earlier we talked about Twin Peaks beyond David Lynch, right? Briefly. Imagine if a Fincher was handed and said, hey, season 4 of Twin Peaks, go with it. That to me would be more fascinating than to see what Lynch goes with next, to be honest.
I think Lynch has put himself in a position where unless he does an actual spin-off, I don't know if there's anywhere else for him to take it. I think he's taken as far as he can take it. But,
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, guys, my boss has called me. I gotta get going, but it was great to talk to y'all tonight. But I'll talk to you later. I gotta get out of here.
Bye, Christian.
See y'all. Bye.
Thanks.
was he supposed to be at work and he called out?
Well, no, Christian talks in code a lot when he talks about his boss calling him. It's the dog next door who's telling him to go on a killing spree.
Uh-huh.
It happens.
Uh-huh.
It does. It does. How you guys doing? I haven't been on a video with you guys in a long time.
I'm doing pretty good, except I have to go to the bathroom. So you guys chat for a minute while I do that.
Release the James-less cut.
Correct.
Yeah, we were talking about how James really has never been all that cool.
He never bothered me. He's no Lana Milford.
I'll take Lana Milford over James any day of the week.
Me too.
Ugh.
James is the worst thing about original Twin Peaks.
The worst?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because everything that's bad rotates around him. I mean, it comes to a head with the Evelyn Marsh story. I mean, Jesus Christ.
He has bad luck with women. And I think there's something to be said as to after Laura, Madeline, and Evelyn that he takes off on his bike to San Francisco.
You may not be wrong, and that seems appropriate enough for me. I was just glad that I'll be honest, like every episode after he left, I was terrified he was going to return. Like that was in the back of my head. I'm like, if they bring this motherfucker back, I think I'm out.
But he goes to San Francisco, and the next time we see him, not counting Fire Walk with Me, he returns with a younger boy as his friend.
Oh yeah. Well, you know,
I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like,
nah,
he seems the happiest he's ever been. He's got a stable job now. Now, I mean, like, now I know you saw season 3 just the one time, correct?
all the way through the one time. Yeah.
I do think it was a mistake to have that kind of buzzing sound in the basement, like just be some random sound, as opposed to, I really did hope it was sort of a nod to Josie still being in the hotel, because like Ben Horn kept hearing it and things like that.
You know what I really, because you know enough about my concept of it, but
Sure.
I really think it should have been like part of the original score, just pitch changed, and that would be the revelation. Like, oh yeah, it's the old show, you know?
Sure.
But unfortunately, we never really got. It remains there as an abstraction, and that's fine. It can represent different things to different people, but I don't know. I think I think if the whole season is cut in half, everything gets better. I think the length of the thing and the density of it is the problem.
So if they had actually done what they had proposed, which was 9 episodes, I almost think that's almost too short. I think probably 12 would have been sufficient.
I would rather it be a little bit too short and leave us gasping for more than it be a moment too long. And as it stands right now, it's way too long. But again, what a weird thing to complain about. Like, we have no right to have gotten a frame of a season 3 of Twin Peaks. So you got to take it as what it is.
But you could argue, and I wouldn't. This is not my stance. You could argue that season 3 isn't even season 3 of Twin Peaks. It's its own thing because it has really no ties to the first 2 seasons at all, tone wise.
Well, I think the show. I think ultimately by the end of the series, we realized that Twin Peaks is a show inside Twin Peaks. I think that's ultimately what's going on. So I think that's the connection. I mean, and yeah, it's to a degree that's Lynch just wanted to make something different. So he did with using some trappings. But again, I never expected my daydreams about a season 3 to ever happen. And there was a point when my daydreams even said, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if they came back 25 years later? I had the thought. But you know what? Real world doesn't work like that. That's crazy talk.
I have papers that I wrote in high school about what I'd like to see, and they went in depth about Laura Dern coming in as Diane. It seemed so obvious in 1990 that she was going to be Diane.
I was so against the idea of putting Diane on screen, and I was wrong because it's great. But I thought that was like violating a Twin Peaks rule. Like, I thought her being just kind of something for Cooper to project into was the whole point of the quote unquote character.
But I think they did it, Lauren, because over the years there were a tremendous amount of people online. And again, you know, people can debate this and that, but a lot of people online were saying that Cooper was secretly crazy this entire time and there was no Diane. And so at least it established that he was talking to a real person.
I do like that. We started out the show tonight talking about the pilot episode because, you know, that was my plan. But inevitably, I think every single one of these Tuesdays is going to turn into talking about season 3.
When you look at the Twin Peaks pilot, and I think it's masterful. I think it's one of the great TV pilots of all time. It is obviously a starting point because where we go in the show makes the pilot look like standard television. That pilot is so revolutionary, and yet it looks so like a play, like a stage play compared to where we go in the show.
I really enjoyed watching it again last night because, you know, it's been a long time since I've rewatched it. Of course, the last time I rewatched it was right before season 3 came out. So I was really there's a lot that I had forgotten about, and there's weird stuff in it. Like, I mean, I'm going to get into this as the season goes on too, but like, you know, like the deer head just falling off the wall and then like sitting on the table as they come into that one room.
Well, there's when he's looking over Laura's body and the light is flickering.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show you that Lynch could pace back then. Not every scene had to be 17 minutes long.
Right.
Like, that's the whole point of the long scenes in Lynch's stuff, was like he could be short sometimes and long in other ways, and it was like really perfectly balanced. And season 3 was like, let's just stretch everything out to the, you know, which is fine, but it's not paced, you know, like Fire Walk with Me, the whole scene in the back of the club works that long because none of the rest of the movie is that stretched out. So
plus that scene's suspenseful.
Yeah, I mean, just like the guy knew how to pace back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't concerned about, because like when he did the original series, there was a script for every episode and they had to get to a certain point at the end of every episode. With season 3, he just made it as one long thing and then just cut it up. You know, it wasn't designed to end at a certain point for an episode. So it just went on forever.
Before I forget about this little thing, I noticed something in my rewatch last night that I have never noticed before. And I don't know if it's because I have a Blu-ray now and it's so clear, but I asked James about this earlier today and he was like, oh, you didn't know about that before and you caught it with your own eye. That's pretty good. You know? Mm-hmm. Well, in the beginning of the show, when Harry goes in to talk on the phone to Leland, mm-hmm. Is that how it goes? Well,
no, he's talking to Pete.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. He goes in there to talk on the phone. You can see David Lynch's reflection in the glass in the bottom right corner.
Thank you, HD.
And you can see, I mean, it's so vivid because of that red, he's got like a red like line on his earphones, and that's what caught my eye was that reflection of that.
I assure you that does not show up in the VHS print.
I don't remember seeing it on the TV episode ever. So
and if you think that's bad, wait till you pop in the 4K disc. Because the new box set comes with that episode in 4K.
Oh,
so it's like, well, there it is.
Well, because my husband, Scott, he kept insisting, oh, he had to put that there on purpose. You know, he put that there on purpose. No. And I'm like, I seriously don't think so. I don't think so. Not this time. Reflections
Happen all the time. We always talk about Suspiria in the opening car. You can see Argento in the rear view mirror. It happens. It's they didn't have computer scrub out back then, you know.
I love that it's there though. I mean, I love that. It's like playing Where's Waldo a little bit, you know.
I love movies. I think we all love movies that feel handmade, and that is definitely it.
because something has gotten lost in the intervening years. Like, I guess, like before everything became computer generated and scrubbed, we would have been like annoyed at mistakes or things that crept in. Now we look back and go, no, it just means that real people did real things.
Right.
People gave a crap to show up that day.
And also, that pilot, as filmic as it is, as cinematic as it is, it still was designed for TV. So they didn't really, the quality control while there, it's not quite as there as for like Wild at Heart.
Right.
Well, the money too. I mean, it was a very expensive television show, which was probably overpriced for what it ultimately would get on the back end. But it still meant you couldn't spend all day on a shot. This is no way. You had to get on with it.
They shot that pilot, I believe, in 22 days, which is long for a pilot. Usually you get about 12.
but it's also a long pilot.
True.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes or something.
Yeah, but I mean,
a movie.
It feels like Blue Velvet 2 is what it feels like, the sequel, which is what it is basically. But yeah, I mean that pilot is, I think, second to MASH. I think it was the most watched episode of TV. That
I think it was the finale of MASH.
Yeah, the finale of MASH.
Yeah,
I remember that clear as a bell. My mom was like crying and everything.
But I think
that's a disturbing freaking finale.
I think the pilot of Twin Peaks, I think it got 46 million viewers. And that was only with 3 networks. That was before, So
I literally cannot see that episode without smelling Easter candy. I smell Easter candy as soon as I start watching it. As soon as Audrey comes out in those saddle shoes, for some reason, that's always the first thing whenever somebody brings up the pilot. That's the first thing that pops in my head is Audrey walking out the door and getting in the limo in those saddle shoes. I love those saddle shoes. I like her red heels too, but those saddle shoes they stuck in my head for life. I loved it.
Yeah, so they shot the pilot, and then ABC gave them the go-ahead, and that's why Audrey has a different hairdo the next day. Because I don't know why they went with that hairdo for Sherilyn Fenn for the pilot. It's so not as good as what Audrey ends up looking like in the series.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that hair. Hayden would say she's definitely a lesbian.
Yeah, he'd probably hate her up and down. Absolutely.
Yeah, Hayden, I want to ask you, Hayden, about Winona Ryder, because she had short hair through like most of the 90s. So I don't think she's a lesbian. So I don't know what you think about
only in Alien Resurrection.
to be fair, everyone, even the males, are lesbians in Alien Resurrection.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Alien Resurrection. Nobody can tell me that movie's shit. I love it.
I think ultimately the Alien franchise is the perfect franchise for film fans to come together, because they're all going to have one film that they like that everyone else doesn't like, or vice versa. It's because there was always serious directors involved and a high level of budget and time. You're always going to get an interesting conversation. So, I don't mind when everyone disagrees with me about it, obviously, because I just feel like at least it's something we can talk about honestly and passionately. There's not many franchises that rise to that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think every single one of us has one that we don't like or one that we really, really do like. Me, though, I actually like them all, which is rare. It's rare for me to like all of the movies from a series, but I do. I really, really like them all.
When I was a little kid, I'll tell you the truth, I hated the first movie. I thought it was terrible. And then you grow up later and you see it in widescreen, not pan and scan, and not on a grainy VHS tape, but on a DVD or Blu-ray. And you go, wow, this movie's incredible.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes the film presentation of the VHS destroyed the movie. I mean, you can't look at that movie in pan and scan.
Yeah, that's
grainy VHS.
Tape just wears, it wears out. So I don't know.
It's too dark. It's too dark for VHS.
There's some things too that I actually miss about VHS. I just kind of miss that gritty, squeaky sound as you're playing a video, and that grittiness to the picture.
I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing, because I'm bad at pointing over my shoulder on video, but that I've been rebuying things on audio cassette because I've become a big fan of tactile forms. And I really don't have the desire to do VHS. I know Jay does, but I have some VHS. I have a player. There's still stuff that I only have on that format, but there is something that has gotten lost in the digital realm. Yes, things look better, but there's something that's gotten lost, and it's kind of what we were talking about before. The human hands craft work of the whole enterprise gets lost. So,
well, I mean,
Yes.
some movies like Chainsaw Massacre was like made for VHS. Like, I love the look of that, but then I also love it on Blu-ray. I think it looks amazing on Blu-ray too. So, I mean, that's one of the rare films where I don't care the format. The movie works on every format. So, but some movies,
I think movies work on the format they're designed to work on best. And the sad thing is, Alien in particular is a film that's designed for movie theaters. Every presentation suffers that's not projected onto, basically a wall. And it's just that kind of movie. The Shining's another example of that. People who've never seen The Shining in a theater have a very different view of that film than anyone who's seen it as intended.
Oh,
I'd even say the original Rocky is designed for theaters, and home video will never do it justice. By the same chord, something like Rocky 3, yeah, you're fine on a grainy VHS.
it's funny. It's funny you say that. I saw The Shining in the theater. I didn't think it worked at all.
Really?
Yeah, it's that 178 to 1 image. It just like looks like a TV screen to me. But see, the thing is, it was like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In the theater, it doesn't work at all. It looks too low budget in the theater. At home, it looks too high budget. So it's like
that movie just has all. Brana just completely shit the bed with that movie. That's so hilarious.
I know, but it's just strange. Like, some movies just look cheap on the theater screen. Then you get it for the TV, and you go, "Oh, they made it for like a TV screen budget, not a movie theater budget."
I don't know. I think like Twin Peaks was the pilot was created for the small screen, and it works brilliantly because they embrace that. And listen, again, since that whole like playing off of the soap opera thing was in the air, it makes sense. It all works for me. Fire Walk with Me, which I think is my favorite form of Twin Peaks, was not designed that way. It was designed completely different. And the people who wanted just the television show on a movie screen were probably looking at it in complete disbelief. But they're different monsters based on what they were made to be consumed as.
I haven't seen it, but I think the pilot would have worked if you went to see like a one night screening of it in the theater. I think it could work.
I think it could too. I would watch it in the theater, and I bet you anything I would enjoy that.
Well, now we enjoy it in any case. I think what Cameron was saying is more he thinks natively if we'd never seen it.
If it came out as a movie.
Yeah.
Well, it did overseas. I mean, Japan and England, they got it as a movie with a different ending.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier.
What do you think about that extended ending?
I like it.
Obviously, it doesn't work for the series, but
it doesn't work for the series. It works for like a final ending of that particular episode. But I don't like it as far as like wrapping it in with the show. But I do like the fact that they do take pieces of it and they put it back into the show. So it's not like they missed out on it.
But even back then, it then dissolves to Cooper with Laura Palmer, and it says 25 years later. Like, even from the very international pilot, they're using that theme.
Yeah, which I thought was fantastic
So that's been in their wheelhouse forever.
And I'd forgotten about that too. I mean, I remembered the part with Mike and him saying the poem, and then them going to the basement, and Bob was down there with that little mound of dirt and the candles, and he talks about, I'll catch you with my death bag or whatever. But I forgot about him getting shot. That was that surprised me because I'd forgotten about that. And then I also had forgotten about them going into the Black Lodge and that whole bit, because I remember that from the end of season 2 rather than.
Well, that's the Cooper's dream in season 1. That's not even from
It's
season
in season 1?
Episode 3, right?
Yeah.
Technically, yes, but purists will say episode 2.
Oh yeah, fuck them.
I have it written
But
down.
alternatively, though, we have to deal within the television ending that obviously cheap, like nonsensical gloved hand pulling the necklace out of the dirt, which turns out to be a complete cheap red herring anyway. So whatever. I mean, that is just that it's so cheaply shot compared to the rest of that episode, which is kind of lush and beautiful. And you have, well, let's throw a camera on the ground and have this happen. Yeah, whatever. It's just,
well, it did hook the audience to come back, though.
Yeah, it hooked me.
I think the mood and atmosphere, like of the last half of the pilot, is what hooked people. I think the grief in the beginning is real strong stuff for television because it was presented as complex grief. But then I think when things get spooky, that's when the show really like, okay, there's something real here.
What I find so sorry.
From the Roadhouse onward is like that is a fucking horror movie. It just happens to not have anything violent in it.
I find it interesting how when we were growing up and that show and when it was on between 1990 91, you know, there weren't repeats, right? I mean, they did do the summer where they repeat. Right. But but it's not like they didn't re-air it like on a continuous basis if you missed an episode. So if you missed an episode, you were screwed. And what I found interesting was back then, that show felt so complex, so hard to follow because there were so many people connected. And now you go back and look at it, it's like it's like children's play. It's so easy to follow.
Yeah.
But because you're not waiting a week between episodes either.
No, but I'm saying style, it just felt like complex storytelling back then. And we've moved so far past that in television storytelling that like it's now pretty pedestrian.
It did feel complex. And I remember every Monday, like I was telling them earlier, every Monday I couldn't wait to get to accounting class because everybody in my accounting class was watching Twin Peaks. None of my actual like regular friends were. Only my nerdy friends were.
But we're the same. We're around the same age.
Yeah.
So we weren't driving then.
Nope.
Okay. That's why we were. Maybe not Lauren.
Season 2, I was driving.
Right, but what I'm saying is
I wasn't. My mom wouldn't let me drive till I was 18.
But what I'm saying is that's why we were home Saturday nights at 10 o'clock. We had no lives. So
I was always babysitting somebody.
Okay, but everybody else had lives, and they didn't watch Twin Peaks.
Right.
And they watched it maybe when it was on Thursdays at 9 against Cheers.
I can remember the network of people trading VHS dupes of episodes, and you'd have to find the right person who had the right episodes to fill in your gaps.
That was exciting times.
Yeah,
it was exciting times, and everyone had but the quality was getting really horrific for certain episodes. Is like if you need like episode 2 and in the middle of season 2, you were screwed as far as quality. Mm-hmm. Things were going to be bad. I mean, to the point where the glitches were going to knock the audio out of sync for the rest of the episode. And
because like season 1, they did not the pilot, but they did issue out a season 1 VHS episode by episode set.
Yep.
It wasn't until the mid 90s that they came out with that awful SLP box set where they literally tape 5 would repeat an episode from tape 2, like in the middle of it. It was horrible. But like the pilot was you could not get the pilot unless it was the international version. They did not issue out the official TV. Even when Artisan put out their DVD box set, no pilot included. They just gave you a little piece of paper inside that told you what happened in the pilot. Like that's gonna get you to know what the mood tone is of the entire pilot. Read a pamphlet. It's ridiculous. But it wasn't until the gold box came out where you could actually get the pilot with the series itself. That was a whole new thing.
Yeah, that's why I like the blue box, because it has everything. It has, I mean, I know there was one that was released after the A to Z box or whatever that probably has more, but I'm not going to double dip on that.
here's where you should double dip. You need to test this out. You got to put on the missing pieces of Fire Walk with Me around the time that Pete and Josie are there. If the audio goes out of sync, you gotta at least get the Criterion disc so you get a version where the audio does not go out of sync, because a lot of people's players, that scene on went out of sync for most people.
Oh, I have to look at that. Maybe.
But the Criterion disc is $20 on the sale. You know what I mean? So you could just replace that one disc. But the Zeta A box set, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on it, but
Yeah. All right, guys, it's getting to be like 2.5 hours, and I've been trying to keep everything down to under 3. So I think I'm going to get going. Plus, I'm pretty tired tonight. So, but I thank you guys for coming.
Where's your Mountain Dew, Jamie?
I have it here. I'm trying to cut down, and my medication I'm still adjusting. It's going to take at least 6 to 8 weeks for me to get fully adjusted. So I can go from being super energetic to like super tired in seconds. It's terrible.
Have you shown the audience your blue velvet couch yet?
Yes. Everybody's seen it, right? Everybody's seen my pretty blue velvet couch. And, my pillows that the cats have taken over. My cats have been here for days and days and days. The one is down here on the floor right now, rolling around, looking cute. And I'm knocking over something, but hi. You can talk to me? Yeah. That's my Samson. He's my buddy.
Delilah's alpaca.
Yeah, they've been totally taking over the couch, which is upsetting for me because that means I'm gonna, in between shows, have to cover it with plastic or something because they keep on getting on there and their hair's getting all over it. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But I hope you guys will come back for another Twin Peaks Tuesday. So
awesome. Are you gonna do this for the whole series?
I am. Every single week I'm coming. Like next week it'll be episodes 2 and 3, and then I'm going to do a few episodes at a time. I'm not going to just stick to one. I'm gonna.
So this is going to be. Oh, okay. I was going to say it'll take a year to get through this whole series. Then
that's what I want. I want it to take a while. I don't want it to be something quick. I want it to be something steady, so that I have something regular every week that I have to be here for. So
gotcha.
It'll give me motivation, and it keeps me, it gives me argument. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you later. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye. Whoops.